Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, joined by Ben Reeves.
Hey, how's it going?
Real good. Joe Juba.
Hi.
And Dan Tack.
All right.
Everyone watch out. Dan Tack's got a case of the giggles today.
We have fun here.
Real
that
hooligan.
personality.
We have fun here.
We got a hell of a show. We're talking about XCOM 2, War 4 of the Chosen.
War of.
It's the War of
Four.
War of the Chosen.
Oh, wait,
and
that's
then the new XCOM 2 expansion, that is Destiny 2. Reeves got to play a bit. We can talk about a little bit of that.
Yeah, a lot bit. 2 days worth.
Fantastic.
Good.
And then also Monster Hunter World and Dauntless. 2 Monster Hunter games. One has
Those
the
are
Monster
games.
Hunter name.
That's right.
It's perfect. Then Super Nintendo Classic, Xbox One X, talking the new Madden a little bit, so hang in there. Then after some fun community emails, we have an interview with an old-timer. One of those old seasoned vets where it's like, it's tough because you want to ask about like what's it like to be one of those old designers in the industry, but you have to work around it.
Yeah.
So this is Bruce Shelley, who was at Microprose back in the day with Sid Meier, working on the first Civilization, working on Railroad Tycoon, that series, yada, 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 getting that ball rolling. Then went on to design Age of Empires.
Oh.
That's a game.
Okay.
That's right, and all of Ensemble. So it's a fun chat talking to him about what it's like working with Sid Meier back in the day, obviously. Ensemble's original vision for what they wanted from Age of Empires 4. It talks about Ensemble's full run, designing Age of Empires 1, how he thinks Relic should now handle Age of Empires 4.
Is he still involved in gaming at all?
Yeah, he is at a company called Bonus XP. They're making Hero Academy 2 coming soon. They released like Servo last year, some RTS games on mobile, but he's kind of a consultant with that company.
Okay.
But he also... this is the beauty of interviews, is at some point he made some reference to this thing that I had not thought about for years and years and years. Remember when Ensemble was making that Halo MMO?
Oh, yeah. Games happen.
Games happen. So we talk about
Or
that.
sometimes they don't.
Exactly. So we talk about that Halo MMO that Ensemble was designing before the entire studio came crumbling down thanks to Microsoft. And then we also talk about another unreleased game they were making, an underwater RTS, Dan.
Oh, wow.
Bioshock? RTS?
Not quite. I think this was
all right.
original, but stay tuned for that.
The idea
I
of
would've
an
liked to have seen
underwater
that, yeah.
RTS. Just, I
Beautiful.
mean, I guess part of what's funny about that is like it's like an isometric highlight and point and do this stuff whether you're underwater or in the air.
You can just put a blue tint on it. It doesn't really matter.
It's like okay, here's some like bubble fish noises. Or
Constantly
something, and
bubbles
then-
coming up in the
Yeah,
camera's
that's
way.
all
Get
it
out of
is.
here every time someone's breathing too heavily.
I want to know more, so I'm going to check out that interview.
God bless you, Dan Tech.
Yeah.
You're so good at plugging the interviews on the show.
On the very
Yeah.
show he's on.
Yeah. For now, let's start with that Destiny 2 nugget, Reeves.
Yeah.
You went to Bungie. You played a lot. What was the most exciting thing or most unexpected thing you saw there?
Interesting question, because I feel like we know this game pretty well. At least I feel like we know this game pretty well at this point. But the most exciting thing was I went in with the correct amount of excitement for Destiny 2, which I would say is
Okay.
interested. I played a decent amount of Destiny 2, but I didn't play it like it was my life.
Destiny 1.
Like, yeah, Destiny 1, sorry. So this one I kind of went in, I was like, I feel like I've been playing Destiny for the last 3 years. Like, why should I be excited for this game? It's the official sequel, but everything you've seen so far kind of makes it look like more of the same, I think would be.
A better version,
some people would
maybe,
say,
of
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I walked away from the campaign, at least, pretty excited. I feel like it's a really solid campaign from what I played. I didn't get to play the whole thing. But it reminded me a lot of, I want to say, Halo 3. In a odd way, just because like the way the campaign flows and there's some vehicle stuff and
Now saying
I can't say too much about that.
but saying that this new game reminded you of a last gen shooter does not sound like high praise.
Well, Halo 3 is a good game. What are you saying?
Even today?
I think Halo 3 holds up. You don't like Halo 3?
But believe it or not, Joe, the game is not exactly Halo 3.
Yeah, it's also
I would
not that
imagine.
game. But there's a lot more to it.
If it harkens back to some of the studio's best, I mean, that's a good sign.
Right. So anyway, the main thing that we got to see that they're showing off at Gamescom this week actually is the EDZ. It's the European Dead Zone. You smirk.
Nothing funny about
smirk.
EDZ.
Yeah. So the European Dead Zone is the new Earth-based locale that you hang out on, and it's in Europe. Obviously, it's very Eastern Europe is what it felt like. There was an old church cathedral that was very broken down that I kind of wandered through.
It's all like forest, right?
And there's a huge forest area. Yeah. So
This is like the new tower?
no, this is like Russia was in the first game. So
okay.
This is an area where you go on quests and you do some campaign missions there. You do a lot of different things there. And
Okay.
yeah. So but because they were showing that off, you got a good feel for like how the game flow and structure is, and getting some side missions. They have these adventures that are kind of like side missions that they. I know that you keep smirking.
I do like
What
the
is
idea of them
this?
just calling them adventures. Like, come
Well,
on
yeah.
over here, you'll have an adventure, sailor.
Right.
I don't know.
It's a little Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're basically side missions, and those are a lot of fun. They're a lot longer than the traditional like patrol. If you remember patrols from the first game,
Yeah.
those are back, and they still have those, and those function very similarly. But now they have these adventures, which are like much longer side story, completely disconnected from the campaign story wise, but they still feel like a campaign mission. And those are all scattered across the map, and you can mark them like you would on a normal open world game, and then it'll show you a nav to get there, and you go do the campaign.
So to zoom out just for a second.
Yeah.
Like you said, you went into this with sort of the idea or the thought of like, okay, it looks a lot like the original Destiny. Can you give like a quick bullet point version of like, what are the big things about Destiny 2 that made you be like, oh, this is why it's more than just more of the same?
Yeah, so I would say I did think it looked like from the trailers, just like, oh, here's Destiny, and they've kind of improved on it, and this is like what the new expansion would be for Destiny. But actually playing the game, like, it looks visually more. How's the way to say that? It looks visually better than I thought it did in trailers. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like when I was playing it, I'm like, oh, this actually is a really good looking game. And like in the trailers, I don't think they did it justice.
Oh,
So like I think it is a
interesting.
notch up. It does feel like a sequel in the visuals, and then like I think the flow is better. I think the open world structure, the way there's a map. There was no map in Destiny 1.
Is
For
that
goodness
right?
grief.
Am I nuts?
Yeah, there was no map.
There was a map like
There was a
the main
galaxy map, if
Okay.
that's what you mean. But there's maps of the actual like locations now. So you can like pull up the map of the location.
Wasn't there a map of the Dreadnought, or did we just run that online? I'm really trying to remember this. I could have sworn I saw some at some point in my life.
Yeah. Did we just run that online?
I think we must have. Yeah.
But yeah, so there were no maps in the game
Yeah.
of the actual locations. And so after you play it for like 20 hours, obviously you know where everything is and you don't need it. But for newcomers, like this map's going to be great.
So is the simple takeaway, it just feels more like an open world game, strangely enough, within this one European Dead
there
Zone?
are open world elements to it. You know, there were always those open areas in Destiny. So they still exist, but I think there's more to do in them now because there's treasure chests that are marked on the map that you can go find. There's what they call lost sectors, which are like underground cavernous areas that you can dive into, and you fight a bunch of guys. And then when you get to the end, you fight a big boss, and he drops a treasure chest, and that has like a bunch of cool loot in it. You can
All
get.
right.
There's the adventures, which I talked about,
Hey.
campaign missions, which you can all do from like the open world area.
Speaking of loot, did you, in the time that you played, the amount of time you had with it, did you get a good sense of like the progression and how rewarding that sort of like, treasure trail is leading up to good stuff? I don't know. That's not what I meant. Yuck.
Did you get
Yuck.
addicted to the loot?
Yeah, it feels good. I don't know if I can talk too much about like the loot in particular I got, but the problems they had with the first game and the light level system and all that stuff was
Yeah.
a mess.
Mhm.
And they fixed a lot of that for Taken King. So anybody who hasn't played since before Taken King, I think is going to appreciate this game a lot more.
Well, I hope it stands
Yeah,
up beyond that.
Right.
So
Well,
did you leave feeling much better, much more excited about this game? Like, what was, give me...
yeah, I was
Okay.
like, okay, I like this game. I remember why I like Destiny. Like, it's going to be fun to play again. Like, I think anybody who liked Destiny obviously is going to love this game. And I think people who wrote off Destiny for whatever reason over the last 3 years, this might be a good opportunity to check it out again.
I will be damned. Dantak was shaking his head through a lot of that. Are you going to play on PC this time, man?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that right?
60 FPS on PC.
Oh
There's
boy, it's
also
going to be
the
a completely
PC.
different game.
Yeah.
I mean, it is noticeable.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Dantak, you want to talk about Monster Hunter, dude?
I'd love to. I love Monster Hunter.
So Capcom swung by generously to the office out here in Minnesota. We got to play Monster Hunter World for a little bit. Joe, you got to play as well.
Yeah, I did.
Oh yeah, we saw that E3 demo together.
Mm-hmm.
What stood out from your time playing it this time around?
I'll let Dan take lead on this.
So one of the
He's
big
pro.
concerns from the E3 and all that stuff was that this was going to be some sort of dumbed down Monster Hunter with like stealthy elements and stuff like that. And while you can get the mantle, which allows you to do the more stealthy stuff, this is a core Monster Hunter game through and through. But at the same time, it appears that they're keeping like major quality of life improvements and accessibility and streamlining some of the systems that were a pain before. So this is basically everything you could ever want as a new player or a veteran.
Your hands won't get cramped on a 3DS anymore.
I am very much looking forward to that aspect of it. Yes.
Yeah. Is this PS4 exclusive?
No, this is PS4, PC, and Xbox.
Okay, gotcha.
No Switch though.
So it's not for babies after all.
No, this is serious. Babies, what?
Well, that's basically what you're saying. Joe, were you
No.
confused by it going into this thing?
Well, so my history with Monster Hunter is different from Dan's because like he's been a fan of this for a long time, and I have been wanting to like Monster Hunter for a long time. And like seriously, I played it back on PS2, and then my last real effort was like a bunch of us here in the office were playing that 3DS version of it, and like while the controls were a problem with that for me, like not having the dual sticks for the camera and stuff, I felt like was a huge problem there. So like what I played on console now is like, I feel like I started to understand the appeal of it a little bit more, but I'm not totally sold yet because I'm like Dan, I think like Dan pointed to, it's still a Monster Hunter game for all of the, you know, like, and that's a good thing for people who've been fans, but for people like me, it still feels like there's like some clunkiness to the combat and the interface, and just for me that core loop of just like repeating quests, killing monsters, getting stuff, repeating, like doing the same quest to farm the same materials or hopefully better materials, like that core thing doesn't seem like it's changed. So again, for people who are looking for that, that's a good thing. For people like me who've been trying to get into the series and just haven't been able to for various reasons, I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced yet that the move to console is going to be, or like the move back to like what, you know, wider audience is going to be the thing that like finally gets its hooks in people.
That's
you know?
interesting. I like the idea that you want it more rebooted, and Dan was worried it was going to be too rebooted.
Is
that the easy explanation here?
I think so, probably. Yeah.
I think this is going to blow people away. I think this is going to bring so many new people into the series. Just that.
What do you say to Joe, who just said, nah?
The systems, like, you kill monsters, you get better stuff. It's the same as many other games today in a different shell. It's just like Destiny. You're just still going on missions, you're killing stuff, you're getting new stuff. Instead, you're killing a giant dinosaur here. That's the only focus. It's like a boss rush almost in that aspect.
But do you
except
see that?
Except it's a boss rush where you're doing the same boss rush multiple times.
You can. It's basically, if you're really, really good, you don't have to, and you just go up to the next tier. But if you're, you need some extra ability to take extra hits, or to get a set that gives you special abilities, or you just want a specific weapon, you go do those hunts. Yes, you do them multiple times if you want the weapon, if you want the armor set. Sure, you do have to, but you're not going to do it for all the monsters. Like, let's say I'm playing, I'm like, okay, I want the tank set, it drops off this turtle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go kill the turtle however many times it takes me to kill the turtle, but I won't kill the the snake. I'll be like, okay, I killed the snake once. I don't want the snake set or the snake glaive or whatever, and I'll just move on.
But doesn't that? I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
Well, I was just as Monster Hunter ignorant over here. Are these random drops you're talking about? So you're having to grind this out. It's not like you drop and you're guaranteed.
No, so if I go and kill the turtle, he's going to drop. This is an example. I don't even know if there is a turtle. It might,
Turtle unconfirmed.
It might drop a carapace or something, that a turtle would drop, and that will be it'll make armor that sort of looks like the monster, or a weapon that sort of looks like the monster.
So that's one of the things that's turned me off, is like having to like grind through things to get what I want, but then also just the like fights themselves feel like kind of drawn out, and the monsters always have a ton of health, and you have to like fight them forever.
They are
There's
long.
some that it doesn't feel realistic, which is like a dumb word to use, obviously.
These are huge dinosaurs. They can take a lot of punishment.
Yeah.
So
you know how many times you have to punch a T-Rex to get it to die, Reeves?
13.
and again,
With
it's all
my
about
fist.
it's all about getting better. Like if on those turtle hunts, just as an example, I'm going to get
Again, turtles really unconfirmed.
I'm going to
You
get
don't wanna
really
get hyped up.
familiar
Can't
with the
say.
turtle's patterns. So I'm going to get better at killing it every time, and I'm not going alone, most likely. Especially now that they're on systems that have online capabilities that are superior to the 3DS. This is a social game. This is a game you play with friends. This is a let's go smash the monsters. It's like, and one person might be, well, I haven't killed the snake yet. You guys want to come help me kill the snake? And I'll be like, yeah, I've got weapons like 10 tiers above, so I'm going to smash that snake really, really fast and get my friend up to speed.
Snakes are confirmed, though.
Or like, you get your friends in and you go and take on like some giant crazy endgame monster, and hopefully you win.
Is there like, did you get a sense for like the story in this game? Because I've noticed that, like, at least for me, I need like at least a thin veneer of story to like keep.
Don't
me
worry
going
about
through
They
it.
are trying for a thin veneer story here, but I would
Sure.
not assume that the story is going to be anything worth writing home about.
The
okay?
official PR message is, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about that story.
Well, I'm curious.
It's not a story-based kind of game.
Yeah, of course not. Come on, everybody.
Come on.
I don't know why you want that. But, Dan, I'm curious because, like, Joe is the most systems-oriented guy.
Mhm.
His official sexual orientation is systems.
Okay.
And he's bouncing off this game. So
Let-
why do
let-
you think it's going to hit for the
Let him
wider
bounce.
audience?
He will be back. There's no doubt.
He's right there. Look at him. Tell him
no,
he'll be
no,
back.
You're talking to me, so I'm talking to you.
So this is my this is what I've decided is
Yeah.
that like after several years of sort of dancing around it, this is Monster Hunter's last chance for me.
Whoa!
Oh,
no, no.
Gauntlet
Oh
Throne.
my
Like,
gosh!
it's happening.
Monster
It's
Hunter, you hear that?
Yeah.
It's calling you out.
Here's the story, Monster Hunter. This is your last chance.
Boy, yeah. I think like after all of this time of like kind of getting into it, I feel like if this one doesn't hit, and if this is the essence of what Monster Hunter is, it's got real controls instead of 3DS controls. Like, if this doesn't do it, I think that's when I just have to shrug and be like, this game isn't for me. That doesn't mean it's bad.
No, I'd agree with that, but this
But-
one will do it. If
Well,
any,
by God, it'll
this
do
will.
it.
Well, Joe, you
I
played
was-
it, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I played it for half an hour, and
Oh.
I mean, I think that's about how long we had with it.
more or less.
And like, I guess for me, part of it is like, I like the idea of a hunt. Let's say you're hunting a turtle,
Uh-huh.
unconfirmed.
Okay.
That, like for that first time you're doing it, I can see that being cool. It's like, oh, where's the turtle? And like having to like,
These turtles sound really cool, by the way.
Go on.
Just an example.
like following the little like flies around and having to like gather, like find the trail and like track it to its lair or whatever.
Yeah.
But like once you do that once, having to do that 10 more times to get the diamond carapace or whatever to like make that set of armor you want, like
Maybe you don't need the diamonds. I'm just saying this is
well,
not. This is
you
not.
don't need anything ever.
It's
you
not
don't
a-
need to play a game, read a book.
You don't.
You don't need to
the end.
breathe.
This is true.
Yeah.
You do need to do that.
Well, Joe, like just for sake of argument, like why is that different than like grinding something out in like Final Fantasy 14 or 15? Like you have to grind out to get the items you want to keep playing the game.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just the question of like the freshness of the content. Like when something is just the same mission that you're just like doing again and again.
Uh-huh.
To me, that's different. Like most RPGs these days, at least like make a conscious effort to get away from grinding, to like present you instead with like a core like a main. What do I mean? Like a critical path progression that just sort of naturally feeds you the experience you need to like overcome most of the obstacles, and then gives you like optional side content.
So to address this, the fights won't be the same if you're playing with your buds. Like, grab a new weapon, try it out. If you're fighting lower tier monsters with your friends, if you're not, you're going to start to see unique ways that having a different party of weapons, because it's all weapon based in this game. Like your weapon is a whole different play style for each weapon.
Right.
Yeah.
So like maybe this time you fought the turtle.
Sure.
With 2 hammer users and somebody with a twin blades and something else, and the fight went completely differently. Or maybe this time you took the turtle into an environmental trap, which are new, and you caught him caught, and then you just totally lambasted him in like 3 seconds.
You can also play through the game while looking in a mirror. Totally like different experience.
That's one way to
Yeah,
change
that's
it.
right.
That does remind me, though, there is one big change from in this version over the 3DS one that I appreciated, and that was the elimination of like the zoned loading screens.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's none of that.
So it's like the areas are just large continuous areas that you move through, which is helpful.
Well, Joe, what if what you were looking for the entire time was a Monster Hunter type game, but made by Western developers, maybe with some former BioWare experience thrown in there?
Man, that is a daunting proposition.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's just move on. I guess we're going to talk about Super Nintendo Classic, unless Dan Tack jumps in and interrupts me.
Well, I'm going to let you. You already started it up, set it up. So like throw the ball.
Flawless.
Dan, it is officially thrown.
Okay.
You've been playing a game called Dauntless.
I have, yeah.
This is in early access
This
now.
is in super early access.
This is,
and it'll go into like another stage of early access, and then another one, and then another one. I think there's a lot. There's a lot of phases.
I can't choose my favorite. This is a Western Monster Hunter, right? Easy pitch.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you can like color it up any way you want, but it's a Monster Hunter game for PC. Eventually, it's a free to play game. It's going to be on the free to play model, and it's in the earliest stages of access now, so sort of like alpha. But
How do you monetize that? If
right,
it's free to play?
so I believe the monetization.
You got to pay to find that turtle.
I believe the monetization is something like you get extra monster drops. which is again
That's all that game is.
I know,
though.
and I've been playing it, and again, it would really turn me off, but I haven't. So let's say I kill. I mean, I've been watching this to make sure it's not bad.
Let's say there's a turtle.
So there's two different. I just want to make sure I get the facts straight first. So you get extra monster drops, which I'll address in a minute, and also if you're paying, then you get cosmetics, more or less.
Okay.
The cosmetic
That's fine.
drops, which nobody else gets. So, and on the other side of things, the extra monster drops. So let's say I kill an owl bear, which is the thing in that game.
Okay.
So we're talking about real things that we're killing
Okay.
now. Not,
Hang, is it more owl or more bear?
I'd say more owl.
So it can
It does
fly,
some really
but
windy
it's, like,
things. Yeah, it can
big like
fly.
a bear.
It can swoop. It's very
Owls
deadly.
are basically already bears anyway. Their talons are huge.
And it hibernates.
Yeah, they are.
That's weird. Owl bears are usually more bear than owl.
Yeah.
Well, this is a new take on the owl.
How far
bear.
does its head spin around its body?
It's pretty scary.
Is that
It's
how
like
it flies? Like
Possessed
helicopter
hour
head?
bed?
Yeah, it's got some reach. But anyway, let's say I kill.
Dan's really getting a real kick
I just
out of this here.
really, I am. I just want to make sure that I get all the facts out before.
Go on.
Before we go on to the
Go
next
on,
segment.
fat boy.
So like, let's say I get 30 trace elements of this creature I kill. If I'm playing with people who are paying, I get like 3 more. And these are stuff that I don't need. The stuff that you really need are like the rare and uncommon drops from these monsters. So I haven't seen it be a problem yet. It could be a problem on release. I don't know. But I'm not seeing it yet.
Are you-
The main factor for monetization is you get cosmetic drops.
Got it. Is this game the go-to easy solution from what you've seen so far of if you want a Monster Hunter type experience on PC that's not, the weird online version of Monster Hunter?
It's hard to talk about now that Monster Hunter World is a thing, right? Before that, this was your de facto go-to product if you wanted to play Monster Hunter on PC. And I'm still I'm quite taken with it right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I have to see how much, how far this goes, right? Like, there's a lot less weapon choices than Monster Hunter, like by a huge magnitude. But the weapons that are there are pretty fun. But they're also a little simple, like in comparison to Monster Hunter's high skill cap. Like once you learn how to do your combos and everything like that, and that's pretty much it so far. But again, I'm not to the high-end encounters yet, but I'm definitely working my way through, and it has all of the monster stuff you like about Monster Hunter. It's all there. So,
Remember
Load screens.
no.
Yeah.
confusion,
I said
general
I
irritation?
said the stuff you like about Monster
Okay.
Hunter.
You said BioWare. Does that mean there's a story?
No,
I don't want to be
no,
that guy.
no. There are quests in the
You are
game,
that
but
guy.
don't be.
Okay.
They're definitely taking like it's an MMO sort of influence on the questing. There's no story to speak of.
All right.
Dan, do you remember a couple weeks ago when we talked about Artifact, the card game?
Yeah,
Valve's
yeah,
exciting
I do.
new game. Remember when we said one of the designers on that game was Brad Muir, who came from Double Fine?
That's right.
I think back, I don't know if you watch this, Reese, and follow this, but he was trying to make a Western Monster Hunter within Double Fine called Brazen.
Oh,
Really?
And they made a working prototype, which I think you can download and play. And it was just pitched as like, we want to do a Double Fine take on Monster Hunter. And they pitched it to every publisher and it was rejected. And so now it's going to be so painful if this game just takes off. Do you think it has potential to
I think
take
it
off?
does, but I've been talking to the people I know that play Monster Hunter and
Yeah.
games like this, also MMOs and stuff like that, and they're just like, well, why don't I just wait for Monster Hunter World? Like, we can play this right now. I'm like, well, if I want to play Monster Hunter, let's play the Monster Hunter. And I'm like, oh, this is really bizarre out of you guys. Why don't we play this one for
your
now?
friends
Let's
sound
do-
really patient.
Hey, this is my
They're still waiting to play Stardew Valley, for Christ's sake.
this is like my MMO guild, right? So they move when the water erodes the rock. All right, that's when they
They
change
live
games.
in Venice. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That makes perfect sense. I'll be damned. So which one's better, though? Monster Hunter World or Dauntless?
Well, considering we have one in extreme early access and
Uh-huh.
one that we played 30 minutes of a preview,
Right,
I think it's way too early to call on that.
Cool. Definitive as hell.
Yeah.
Joe, did you finish Uncharted Lost Legacy?
I haven't yet. No.
Oh, damn. Okay, I was hoping to put a cap on that conversation from last week a little bit.
No, I wish I could. I was out of town, so.
Oh, damn. I finished it. The story does come together. Like, Andy and Reiner weren't completely pulling it out of their ass when they're talking about, like, yeah, it's a little vague in the beginning, but it's for a reason.
Mhm.
The reason is, it's like, okay, makes sense why they kept it mysterious, but it's not, I would say it's not top tier Naughty Dog storytelling, but it did come together in a more satisfying way.
It comes
than I
together,
definitely
but
imagined.
still, they probably could have used a more deft hand at the beginning hours. You would say.
I think
Like, they
so.
could've probably
Like, I
rolled it
don't
out better.
think like the punch that they deliver with it is worth the kind of soft intro for those characters, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I made this point last week, but just like real quick, I feel like even if it pays off, even if it's good, when you're dealing with like a 10-hour game, if you're making someone play 4 hours before like that kind of story starts to come together, like 4 hours in a 10-hour game is way longer and harder to justify than like 4 hours in a Persona game that ends up being 100 hours.
Yeah,
you know?
for
Like,
sure. Definitely. I beat it in 6, by the way.
Persona? Holy crap.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at that
Good
game.
job.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's
I do what
definitely
I
a speed
can.
run right there.
Yeah. But Uncharted, you finished it then, Reeves?
No, I haven't finished it yet.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Damn it. It has a lot more of Uncharted 2 in it than I expected.
I did get a little further than I was when we had that conversation. So
Yeah.
like, I know a little bit more about the story and some of the things that
Okay.
were being concealed, but I mean, yeah, not enough to speak definitively
Yeah.
about it.
Hey, holy Lord, XCOM 2.
Buh?
Don't let me forget about this. The
Yeah.
XCOM 2 expansion.
There is an XCOM 2 expansion coming out, and the review is up on the site now, actually.
And it's coming out
But
next
it comes
week?
out next week. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
just to be
What?
clear.
How is it?
It's really good. So I'm a sucker for that game.
No
I think
kidding.
it's like a sickness or something. I just have a disease. I just want.
Where you like good games?
Yeah, that's right.
You gave the base version of it a 9.75, right?
9.5.
9.5.
Oh,
if I'm
okay.
correct. But yeah, I did. I was flirting with it. But yeah, it's a
How
good
are
game.
you doing,
Hey,
XCOM?
buddy. I think this one is overall, like, if you haven't played XCOM 2, like, this is a good place to jump in.
Oh,
I will
really?
say it's
An
like
expansion is a good
Well,
place to jump in.
yes and no. Like, it is more complicated in a sense, so that's like one knock against it. But at the same time, it's like adds more things, and like those things are really fun. So,
Okay.
and I think you can get it. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if it's bundled or not, but like it's still really good. I bet XCOM 2 is pretty cheap at this point.
So the big takeaway with this is that you're fighting these aliens and then
Yeah.
incorporating them into your army this time around?
No. I don't
Okay.
know where you got that information.
I thought you were
Yeah.
recruiting those weirdo aliens.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So two different things. Yeah. Yes and no. So there are new resistance factions that
Dan
you.
Tech is shaking his head so much.
I'm just trying to follow it. I'm not shaking my head. I'm just-
What's not to follow? Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Two
Come on.
things.
So there's these turtles. Wait a minute. I can't confirm the turtles.
You wouldn't want to grind turtles.
Yeah, that's right. So there are new resistance factions that you can like make friends with in the game. And
Humans.
Then, some of them are human, and then there's actually like human alien hybrids.
Ooh.
And you can recruit them into your game, and they function differently. They have new unit types. And then there's these other aliens, which are called the Chosen, and they are kind of like the Nemesis from Shadow of War,
Yeah.
Shadow of Mordor. And you continually fight them throughout the game. There's 3 of them that are all named, and you run into them at random throughout
So does that
the
mean that they
campaign.
run away when they get down to low health in every time you fight them? Like, not this time, soldier! And then they run, then you fight them
Yeah.
again later?
Like a little cartoon character
Yeah.
bow out.
Okay.
Yeah, they do run away. So, but you can kill them permanently if you hunt them down.
My God.
Hunt down their base. So, but then they get stronger as you fight them. They'll have weaknesses that they will lose or gain, depending on how you encounter them each time.
That's pretty
So,
cool.
like, I thought, yeah, and we always talk about the Nemesis system being a cool game, a cool element of a game that nobody else is using. But like, here's a game that's doing it and doing it well. So those are the Chosen, and then I mentioned the factions, and those all have different unit types. And those guys, I wanted to use them in every mission because they're all awesome. There's like these one unit type that are concealed, start out concealed, so the enemies can't see you. And they have an opportunity to fire at guys and not get revealed, so they can theoretically stay hidden super long time. There's another like class that's super strong, super close melee, has extra turns, so they can go and like just wreck and like take out a bunch of guys. And then a third class that is very psi based, and so as they attack enemies, they power up. They like gain psi energy with every kill they do. So that-
SIGH?
yes.
Okay, got it.
SIGH.
Do you think this is a better expansion on XCOM than Enemy Within?
Do you think people understood what I was saying?
Yeah.
Because you interrupted me?
Yeah, we
okay,
get it.
great. Yeah, I think it's I don't understand your question because I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Enemy Within to Enemy Unknown
Oh yeah.
versus War of the Chosen to XCOM 2. Is it more of a leap than Enemy Within was? Does it change up the formula more than it did on the original there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to that old expansion. I think that was also a good expansion. I think this expansion probably is meatier, honestly. There's stuff I haven't talked about yet. There's these lost enemies, which are basically zombies throughout the game. There's new environments, new gear and stuff like that, and new like photo session. You can create photos of your troops and
What?
like get them plastered all over the world.
Hang on, stop. This is very exciting. Wait, what is this?
Well, this wasn't that exciting to me, but you can take photos of your troops and like make propaganda posters, basically.
That seems cool. Wait, so you can like put them in different places in the Sky Ranger? Is it still the Sky Ranger this time around?
There's still so you're making photos. You're arranging your troops and taking a photo of them, and then you can like set a different background or whatever.
You make a propaganda poster.
And then you use that propaganda poster, and then you just save it in your file. But then sometimes that propaganda poster will like appear in the environments you're in.
This sounds very good. Yeah. Dan, tag you into this?
Yeah, it's cool, but does it do anything? Like, is there a game functionality, or is it just for kicks?
The functionalities that you see it in the game world.
Okay, I get that part.
And then you giggle like a madman.
This is why he treated it like an afterthought, and for some reason Ben Hansen,
Hansen thinks it's really cool.
I like
it's the
anything in
best
XCOM
thing.
that lets you connect more to the soldiers. The idea of like posing my soldiers and taking photos of them, I'm pretty into it.
Yeah. Well, so there's people like you who will totally be into that. And I was like, I did it once, and I'm like, yeah, all right. It will automatically like make new posters for you if you're not doing it. It's like, you should take a photo of these guys and use it. And you're like, okay, I guess.
I guess for Access.
They did
if
really
you're into
good that
sort of
time.
thing.
Yeah.
So what'd you end up giving this one?
925.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
And this is on. So when XCOM 2 first came out, it was PC only,
Yeah.
but it's out on like console also at this point.
Yep. Day and date, all three systems, PS4, Xbox One, and one knock that the original XCOM 2 got was like no controller support. They've since added that. It's not like with this one, but if you avoided XCOM 2 because of that, like it's got controller support now, which is great.
But it's also coming out next week on Switch, right? Just under the name Mario Rabbids?
That's right.
Okay.
They did some tweaks, new skins, a lot of like Nintendo support for that.
Fantastic. We'll talk about that next week. I'm excited. Well, that's very informative, but we have more games to talk about, more things to talk about. So do you guys want to clap or bang your way out of here?
Let's bang
count
it.
us out.
Let's bang it
All
out.
right. 1, 2, 3. Hey, guys.
What's up?
Welcome
Right.
to the show. We have Matthew Cotto, we have Matt Burtz, and we have Imran on a computer.
Howdy.
Welcome, sir. So you might sound a little funky for the audio listeners. Imran, I want to start with you. You got to play the Super Nintendo Classic.
I did. It was actually very nice.
Really? So where did you go for this? How did this work? How long did you get to play? What was it like?
I went to Nintendo's PR office, and we just sat down for Nintendo Classic for about 45 minutes, but we only like really put up about 50 minutes of video.
Yeah.
And it was basically me just going through every game, going, I remember this, and starting playing it, and it plays how I remember.
It's got to be that weird thing, like when you're in front of Nintendo, even if it's just PR people, to be like, well, let me jump into Mario World. Yeah, this looks like Mario World. Now, how long do I play? Like, I get the idea. But it's just like the main interface is the thrill, right?
Yeah, the interface is a thrill, but also if they let me just play Mario World, I would have probably played it for a very long time. But there was a point where I'm like, okay, I've gone through like 2 stages and I died, and now is a good time to just hit the reset thing.
Nice. What stood out? What was the most interesting thing or most unexpected thing after getting your hands on that thing?
They actually put a lot of work into the interface this time. Like the NES Classic was very Spartan. Like it was basically just here's the pictures of the games and no real borders, no real like. There were some filters, but not much beyond that.
Yeah.
This time, they actually made a product that it seems like they know people want to mess with that sort of thing. They want a little bit more like relish around it. So the SNES Classic is a lot more, I guess, advanced in that form.
So it changes the color on one of the backgrounds based on the game you're playing. Is that right? Because it's like the 4:3 screen, then everything beyond that, it adapts to the game?
That's what they told me, that it's based on the primary color on the screen. Now, checking the video, I'm not sure that's true, but it does seem like it does change based on like a random color that it samples at like, I'm not sure what intervals, it might be a random interval itself, but it's a really cool thing. Like most of the borders are going to be just like static images, but like that grid border, that Tron-like thing is going to change based on the game.
How weird. Kato, do you have any interest in this thing?
Yeah, sure. If, like everybody else, if I get my hands on it, did you try the rewind feature?
I didn't try the rewind feature. I didn't want to make too many save states, but I did notice that like one of the cool things about that rewind feature is that you can make the save state rewind just a little bit or fast forward and try to get the exact spot. So you're never going to end up in one of those situations where you save state at a wrong time. You're like, well, I just screwed myself because I'm not going to be able to make this jump midair.
Hang on a second. I'm confused. So does every game have a rewind like Forza Horizon or something? Or what does this mean?
Yes. Every game has a rewind like Forza Horizon.
That's amazing.
I think they said that the interval that it does, skips back. It depends on the game, so
Yeah.
it won't always be the same. And it sounded like they were trying to match it up where it would be, what's appropriate for each game.
Yeah, I get like you could really cheese, say, Super Punch Out if you had a completely open rewind feature. But for a lot of games, like I tried it in Contra and I was able to rewind past like a bullet. So
bullet.
worked out fine. Yeah.
How bizarre. Also, we posted a video of you playing Star Fox 2, which is a bizarre thrill. That looked a little rough.
It's a 3D Super Nintendo game.
Exactly.
It
Looks a
exactly
little
as
rough.
you think it would in 2017.
Was it fun at all? Was it just exciting on an educational level to see that game?
Yeah, for me, mostly it was the educational level that I found interesting about it. Like, I never really found the original Star Fox that fun. Like, I like Star Fox 64 quite a bit, but the first game was never, because it ran so poorly and it controlled not that great. So, like, the interesting thing to me about that was trying to figure out, like, oh, so this is where they got that thing in 64. This is where they got that thing in Command. This is where Star Fox Zero's, some of that's weird ideas came from.
Yeah.
So it's a cool little historical piece. I don't know how much I'd like. I'm not going to fight for that game of the year, probably.
Yeah. So overall, I take it you went into that meeting wanting Super Nintendo Classic and you left wanting one about the same amount?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I was kind of disheartened. I mean, like, because, like, you play that thing, it's like, oh, this thing is really cool. There's almost no chance I'll actually be able to get this.
It's so
And then, like,
peculiar to me. Like, why do you make it if you don't want to sell a bunch of it?
It's just,
that's business 101, right?
I guess so. It just seems like the entire world is just assuming that Nintendo executives are just watching people just run around like maniacs, like chickens with their heads cut off and just laughing like maniacs. But why do you think it's happening, Bertz? What is going on?
I seriously, I rarely can figure out what Nintendo's thinking at any given point. And this is definitely at the upper echelon of I'm just dumbfounded. Like,
well, the thing is,
make a lot of money. It's right there for you.
It's for every single system, though. It's not just these throwback systems.
Yeah.
It happens at every launch of every system they do. So,
but I get it for Switch. Switch is a new technology. You have to get the manufacturing base in place to design this stuff and to ramp up. And, there's a question of scale with something like that. This is old ass technology.
And you think
real cheap HDMI ports, stuff like that. This is not.
I just don't understand. Like, is it just like, is that ramping up aspect of like, well, this is a limited time thing. So with Switch, we can like have an investment in these warehouses and start to build up these factories and whatnot. I don't really know how these things are made. But with Super Nintendo Classic, then it's like, because it's a limited time thing, like there's no chance to adopt to how popular it is. So
why is it a limited time thing? You know what I mean? Like, just keep selling these. I'm pretty sure the NES thing would still be selling if it was available.
Yeah. No, look, it makes absolutely no sense, and it's very confusing. It's like, because you follow, I don't know, I have TweetDeck open all the time at work, and you can see, like, the most educated people in the game industry, like people like Wario64 will tweet out, like, hey, there's pre-orders open at Walmart. You go there. It's like a 30-second window. No joke. Like, it's down 2 seconds, your chance to get this thing, at least for pre-ordering.
To maybe get it. A lot of the pre-orders were canceled last time, right?
God, I just don't understand
if you were not on this coast when the pre-orders came out, like I think it was like a couple of days ago, then you basically had no chance because it was like 10:30 and that was like the earliest time that any pre-order showed up. Like I was on the computer because I just pretty much finished the workday, but most people on the rest of the country weren't going to get a chance.
It made me just say, F it, I don't even want one anymore. I'll just borrow Super Nintendo from work. Like, it's so fucking frustrating.
Or you'll play like the 80 different versions of this you probably own on your various Nintendo devices.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. It would just be a luxury to be like, oh, it'd be cool to have an Earthbound device that I can plug right into my TV. But yeah, I'll just play that. I think I already own it somewhere else. So
I think like the most maddening thing to me is that Nintendo isn't explaining what they're doing with like Virtual Console or anything like that on Switch. And that would like alleviate a lot of this too. Like, if this is your only way to play Star Fox 2 or like the most convenient way to play Earthbound, it really sucks they're not making a more modern way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, speaking of maddening, let's talk to the sports experts here. Here we go. That's the best I got. I really, before this segment, I had to stop and think, Madden 19, 18. This is 18, right?
It's like Cars. But, so think of it like it's 2017. The Madden model that's available this year is the 2018.
But help me, because last year it was Madden 25, right?
Last
year was 17.
Like 4 years ago.
Okay, I can't keep up with this stuff. How is the new Madden?
It's pretty good.
Okay.
I think it does slant a little bit more towards the competitive people. So if, you're some of the hardcore, like stick gamers out there, or super into Ultimate Team or whatever, I think it's more towards those people.
Is the esports crowd for Madden so popular that they're just trying to cater to
them?
They're
trying.
Yeah, they're trying. I mean, it's tough because like in sports games, there's cheese plays. I mean, there is a lot of that as we're finding out in a lot of competitive
like For Honor
stuff. Yeah, exactly. But I think, some of the sports games still suffer from some of that. So it's a little tough, but I don't know, judging by at least the effort that EA puts into some of that stuff, and as we're seeing with how they're sort of, I don't want to say slanting the features, but maybe catering to that sort of side, at least this year, I'd got to think that it's gaining some traction for them.
Yeah, it's weird. There's so many different kinds of sports fan. Like they have like the long shot story mode this year. That's sort of like more of an introductory. Like Ben Hansen, you are vaguely interested in football at best.
Yes.
Like you might find that mode interesting because it's like a story. Right. And
That's the reason I played that weird
play.
Spike Lee basketball thing.
Exactly.
That's the reason they got me around to that.
Exactly. So they have something for you. They have something for the super hardcore competitive people. The ones that are kind of left in the lurch this year are like Kato and I. We're the franchise mode guys. We like building up the infrastructure where you can create a team, draft, pick up free agents, create a dynasty. They didn't do much for us this year.
So much meaning they lessened the overall package on a sim level, or?
No, they just didn't. There's some features that they didn't address. First of all, there's no new features. There's one small tweak to injuries, which means they happen more often. So you're having to, you're having to like manage your depth and make sure you've got people to come in to fill those injured players. But so A, they didn't add any new features, really almost no features. B, they did a tweak, and then sort of the C component of that is you want them to change things like how formation subs works or clean things up, that are legacy problems for simming and stuff, and they haven't really done a lot of that either. So that's what he means.
So with the competitive stuff, is it just more spectator options, or what makes it tailored to the competitive crowd?
The competitive crowd is kind of upset with the way that the simulation engine determines outcomes a lot of times.
Too physicsy?
If you have a player who's 98 rated, or I guess a better example would be like a guy that's 70 rated. You hit the interception button at the right time to intercept the ball, but your guy's rating prevented you from being able to get the interception. That's the delta there for the competitive players. They want stick skills to matter more.
Yeah, like I did it on my controller. I saw it, I executed it, but the player didn't, perform the thing that he was supposed to perform.
Right.
That's BS, because I did it. But the computer decided to step in and
the dice roll got in the way of the skill.
Exactly.
And so it's just lessening the impact of that dice roll?
Well, they've created different play styles now that you can play the game. There's arcade for if you're just picking up and playing. There's sim, which is the stuff that Kato and I play where the ratings matter.
Yeah.
And then there's competitive, which basically stick skills rule.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Do you think it's going to pay off for them?
Don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like, for instance, there's a 3-on-3 Madden Ultimate Team squads co-op thing, which is, again, catered to that because it starts on the competitive play style. It's all played on the competitive play style. And then also there's some features that are you can use in other areas. Let's say like there's a thing called target passing, which is kind of hardcore. There's also a ways you can sort of a chess game between the wide receiver and the cornerback. And that's, again, tailored towards the co-op mode because it's assuming that one human player is playing the wide receiver, one human player is playing the cornerback. Whereas like, when average people play, I'm just playing the QB, I pass it to the receiver, then I control the receiver. But this is all about, co-op gaming. So that again goes towards that, more competitive side.
Huh. So the casual crowd, that story mode, they made a big deal out of it at E3. How is it?
It's good. I think, the story doesn't step out of its bounds. It doesn't try to do too much. It's the kind of, Friday Night Lights, local town, small town Texas sort of thing that, you've seen and heard and read and all that kind of stuff many times. But again, it has, a couple, no, I'm your father moments, but it has some twists that it does.
Really?
It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. I think, to that sort of effect, it's not as much about, gameplay. There is a little bit of gameplay or some mini games and stuff, but I like what they did in terms of the flow, so like the plot points, when they present the gameplays and the little games and stuff, I think it flows pretty nice. Whereas, say, in contrast to anybody who's played The Journey from FIFA last year, you were just playing games, and it was just kind of a slog because it was trying to replicate a season.
Yeah.
This isn't trying to do that as much and like, okay, here's this whole season. It's more just, we're going to tell a story in 3 to 4 hours. So we plan the flow of how you go through it. And that's what makes it, I think, it's kind of a hidden strength, I think, of the mode.
So it's kind of like little snippets of certain games then throughout the context of it?
It's kind of, there's a lot of weird mini games in it that you don't ever do in regular Madden.
What? Like what?
like you have to guide the ball from the quarterback's hand into a receiver's hand, and just stuff that's really it's super awkward to get used to.
So it's like you're controlling like a fly-by-wire rocket in perfect dark and like controlling a football.
Yep.
That sounds absurd.
Yeah.
Yep, there's a lot of weird stuff like that. I'm not as high on that mode as Kato is. I think he's right that the narrative was served by the structure they went for, but I really like the My Career mode in NBA 2K where the narrative is built into your regular experience of upgrading your player, getting, attribute upgrades along with like monetary upgrades so you can spend more money on new outfits and blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah.
I like that RPG hook. This doesn't have an RPG hook.
So it doesn't even live up to Spike Lee's absurd story. From
Well, the
NBA
story's
2K16.
way better than Frequency Vibrations.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah, it's
That one does end with a ghost reading letters, so it's pretty cool.
it's way better than that storytelling wise, but the mode itself isn't really buttressed by it. There is no mode.
Yeah.
You go through the story. It's like you can do it in one sitting.
Yeah.
We did, right? Or
Yep.
maybe So
Yeah.
it's real quick. You'll remember it. Good acting, but
Okay.
not overall like a destination mode experience.
Imran, when was the last time you threw a football?
Last time I threw a football was probably in college.
Okay.
Oh, you
Just
played quarterback in college?
very impressive.
No, I was in England in college, and no one there. Like we were trying to teach them American football, and it wasn't working out great.
So did you posit yourself as like, I am the football expert here. You have to listen to me because I know everything about American football. So listen up. Is that how you?
Absolutely, yes.
You screamed at them. Wait, you went to college in England?
Yeah, for about a year or two. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Where at?
a little college north of Liverpool called Edge Hill.
How did you find your way there?
I was doing study abroad at my normal college, and I just kind of like they asked me if I wanted to do an extra year. I was like, all right, sure.
Amazing.
Is
Wow.
Edge Hill, where they educate all the edge lords of the UK.
Is that right?
Oh, not so. Like there was no Shadow of the Hedgehog fandom there, so probably not too many edgelords.
Yeah. Imran, since you're the big news guy here, I'm curious what stood out to you from Gamescom, and maybe specifically when it comes to Microsoft's big unveiling, because this is kind of their last big convention push before the launch of the Xbox One X, and it seemed to not exactly land with a huge splash.
Yeah, they held a pre-Gamescom show, which everyone assumed was going to be their last argument for the Xbox One X because they really haven't had much of one so far. And this is post-Crackdown 3 delay, which I'm guessing they did the other day to get out of the way of this thing. But they didn't actually do much to make an argument for it. They announced a Project Scorpio version, which is every pre-order is going to just have like the I guess traditional green Project Scorpio on the console and like an exclusive stand, which to me seems crazy.
You can't see it. Kato is furrowing his brow. It's just the idea that people are that attached to the code name. It's like launching the Kinect with like Project Natal all over it. Like people just let go of that code name. They forget about it so quickly, right? But this one has a sticking point.
It feels like Microsoft has been entirely convinced of their own hype with the Xbox One X, which I think is part of the problem. I think that like the delay of Crackdown 3 kind of speaks volumes to me about how poorly they're managing software these days. And if that's the case, then if you're an Xbox owner who loves the system, you're happy with Microsoft, there's no reason not to get an Xbox One X besides just price. But if you're not, if you're someone who's not entirely convinced by mid-generation refreshes, if you're someone who has a PS4 or a PS4 Pro or a PC, then I don't know what Microsoft is trying to do because they didn't really announce any games. They announced some bundles. They announced a very expensive Minecraft bundle. They announced a Shadow of War bundle that is only for the Xbox S, not for the One X, which is crazy because when they were at E3, they were saying that game needs to be played on the Xbox One X to get the full experience. So like the marketing isn't jiving with the like new products. I don't know what they're thinking, and I don't know what their expectations are for the Xbox One X. But if they plan to make this a full replacement one day for the Xbox One, they're not jumping out of the gate with all hands on deck.
Yeah, it seems like Phil Spencer, I think during interviews at E3, he even framed it wisely and like, we know it's like a fraction of the audience. We don't expect this to be the new default necessarily, but it is crazy just getting the gist of that Gamescom press conference. It seemed to be a lot of details of like, hey, you can play Rise of the Tomb Raider again, except this time it'll be enhanced a little bit. It's like, who the hell cares? It's like, that's not going to sell anybody to go play these old games that are technically, a higher resolution.
But PUBG,
They seem very convinced about the idea that the word 6 teraflops sells people, and I'm not convinced that's going to sell anybody.
Phil Spencer's wearing T-shirts that said 6 teraflops all over it. It's absurd. But yeah, so Bert's brings up the big one, which is PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. They are grabbing onto that like their last life raft now that Crackdown 3 has sailed, because really...
it's Forza and Super Lucky's Tale, I think.
Yep.
And PUBG maybe getting into game preview.
Right.
That's
and so
the holiday.
So they announced that they're going to be actually publishing PUBG on the Microsoft on Xbox One. But it's a weird hat to, and it's weird to hang your hat on PUBG when it comes to Xbox One X. Again, it's already playable on PC, and
8 million people have played it.
Right. And it's like trying to connect it with the Xbox One X in any way is just a bizarre message. But I guess grab on to what's popular.
And they're kind of obfuscating exclusivity, like they're trying to have it both ways, saying like, oh, this is going to be exclusive on Xbox One X for the fall. And it's the same way, remember a couple of years ago when they signed Tomb Raider as exclusive, and they wouldn't really commit to like saying if it's timed or permanent or whatever. So they're kind of doing the same thing, which pretty much says that it's not exclusive.
No, definitely not. And even in like in the Battlegrounds original blog post, they said they were working on an Xbox version first, and they're going to be working on the PlayStation 4 version. But yeah, the fact that they aren't coming out and saying this is 100% exclusive, of course not. There's just, in theory, it's going to come out before the PlayStation 4 version. Maybe just because of the weird early access version that's available on the platform. But has this kind of diminished your guys' hopes or expectations for Xbox One X at all?
To be honest, I've never had any.
Yeah,
exactly.
Jesus, even like Forza, you're not like curious what this is going to look like running on an X?
I've seen it running. I've played it running on an X, and yeah, it looks fine. But I mean, for all those people who don't already have 4K TVs and stuff, this is not, or the PlayStation 4 Pro for that matter. It's not going to make me go out and it's not going to make me go home, take a hammer to my current TV, and then go buy a 4X, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Or 4K.
And that's what good marketing would really get you to do. I'm just saying, what if I convinced you with 3 words, Kano? Recore Definitive Edition.
Oh, God.
Run, don't walk.
How bad is it that they're marching
words.
that thing back out?
What else do they have? Even like, I just assumed Sea of Thieves was coming out this year.
I did
and then
too.
looked it up. Oh, no, that's 2018 as well.
Yeah.
State of Decay,
State of Decay,
2018.
Man alive.
Yeah, they've got first-party problems. We've talked a lot about that in the
Yeah.
past. That's not going away anytime soon, it seems like.
No, it's just fascinating to see them lean so hard on that hardcore Xbox community to try and rally them to be enthusiastic about this thing. But just like, you can brag to your friends about how powerful that expensive thing you bought is. Won't that be cool, everybody? Buy the Scorpio edition. It's a weird deal. I'm curious how people react to it once it actually gets out there. I'd imagine it's going to be
quietly. That's how they'll react.
I mean, it's about the same as the
quietly.
Pro. Like, every once in a while, somebody will mumble something about, like, yeah, I guess I got a Pro one. Is anyone excited about their PS4 Pro a year later?
I don't think so. I mean, this is the gamble of the mid-generation console refresh, right?
Yeah.
It's not a new baseline platform from which all developers can build. They still have to scale all their projects back to the original PS4, Xbox One.
Right.
So you're not really seeing a generational leap, really. You're just seeing prettier graphics.
Yeah.
And some people want that. I totally get it. Like, have at it. Spend the money.
Yeah.
But I understand why a lot of people just aren't enthused by it.
Yeah.
And, I think the thing that gets confusing sometimes to a lot of people out there is that, when these things are announced, developers are always going to ask for more. They're always going to like more. You know what I mean? If you tell them there's a system that can do, gives them more power, whatever, or whatnot, they'll always sort of go for it. But that's not necessarily the same as a dedicated, rich partnership between a publisher and, the third party or even first party developers, and really making sure that the games are there. So, I mean, you could go out on the street, grab any developer, stick a microphone in their face and say, do you want, more power in your systems? They're going to say, oh yeah, sure. But that's not translating, and we're seeing that a lot time and time again, where when the system comes out or when it comes to the rubber meeting the road of the games getting on the system, that's a whole different relationship. That's a whole different process. That's a different thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a weird place the industry's in right now. We'll see how it goes. But thanks, guys, for joining us. And you want to move on to some community emails? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We got rid of that last crew, and now we have a whole new crew. Joe's
Yeah.
back, Ben Reeves is back,
That's
and Jeff Barkiafava is back.
Way better.
Do you have an introduction for anybody that's new to the GI show that hasn't heard you on here before?
I think Leo has it queued up.
Leo, take it away.
Completely did not have it queued up. Dang it, Leo.
Fantastic. Well, the way this segment works, Jeff, if you don't remember, because it's been at least a month or something, is a lot of people sent in wonderful emails to podcast@gameinformer.com. We then combed through all of them, chose some of our favorites, and I'm going to read them, on air, actually. We're going to
Great.
respond to them in a witty, entertaining, educational, informative way. And then at the end of the whole thing, we're going to choose our absolute favorite email of the week, and then we ship them out something real nice.
Beautiful.
Have you considered that it might be a better email segment if we just email them back? Then it's like email on both sides.
Oh, so it's not even on the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would be, but it'd just be us typing the email.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
That'd be
you know
good.
what? I'll take it into consideration.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Leave an iTunes review if you'd like us to do that. I think that's the best way to get that feedback over to us. Anyways, Josh from Corning, New York, really dives right in. Says, "Hello, everybody. Joe commented last week on people in the Star Wars universe who died peacefully.
This is still happening.
It will not end." Just Ben and Jeff, if you aren't caught up. Outside of Yoda, we're talking about who might have conceptually have died in the Star Wars universe peacefully. So, Josh,
George Lucas. I think.
Wow.
I don't think so. I think the white slavers got him, as he once
Are you
put it.
sure?
Very cool way. Josh from Corning, New York says, Joe commented last week that Yaddle died peacefully, when in fact she did not.
Oh,
Yaddle was canonically sent on a mission to Mawan, along with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin. Their mission was to restore peace to the lawless planet. Yaddle sacrificed her life for the people of Mawan by using the Force to absorb a bioweapon released by Granta Omega. I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that is a peaceful way to die.
okay. It's not. However, I will take issue with the canonically part of that because that sounds like expanded universe stuff that was like rendered non-canonical by the new swap.
No. That was in Return of the Jedi.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so,
okay. No, yeah. I remember that
Yeah,
scene now. that
Jonah
you mentioned it,
Dickhouse
yeah.
writes in. That's his real last name. He's written
Really?
in before. Yeah, he says, without spoilers, he says the end of Rogue One. That's a peaceful death. I disagree, though. He said they were happy, but...
There's a difference between being at peace and dying peacefully.
Right.
Because, otherwise, Obi-Wan Kenobi, that dude was at peace when he got,
Yeah,
Darth
probably.
Vader.
Not much
Yeah.
angst.
He was
Craig,
ready to go.
Craig M. says, "Hello, everybody. Darth Plagueis is the answer here. As quoted by Palpatine himself, he had, quote, taught his apprentice everything he knew, then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. This, at least canonically, is peaceful. Without going into the details of how he was killed in his sleep, where the argument could be made against it, in theory, Darth Plagueis died in his sleep.
You know what? Actually, this is the most convincing one that I think we've had sent in because I guess it would all depend on the poison, assuming it was poison and not lightsabered.
Yeah. If you get lightsabered, I mean, you're waking up when it happens.
Yeah.
But then
You
at
could
that point,
technically be sleeping.
And-
But is that still being killed in your sleep?
so you started out sleeping, but in theory, everybody wakes up when they're dying, right?
I don't even know, even if you don't feel it. The act of getting lightsabered in your sleep is not peaceful. But if
Yeah.
it's hey, here's a poison that I'm gonna feed you with your, I don't know, evening oatmeal, and then you're gonna eat it and go to sleep and then just sort of fade away.
Well, would Palpatine...
No,
help-
that's still
That's still like murder.
yeah.
I don't think Palpatine would go for a nice, quick, painless death either with Plagueis, right? He would have brutally murdered him. That's the Sith way.
Yeah.
Hang on, am I stupid? Palpatine kills Plagueis, right?
I mean, I don't think
Or he
that's
says he does?
I don't think that's ever been 100% confirmed, but he tells the story with such relish to imply that he was the apprentice who killed
And
Darth
then
Plagueis.
Sin attacks.
What?
That was a reference to
Oh,
Final Fantasy
Final
X
Fantasy.
because they looks like this. It looks like Blitzball behind him in that scene in episode 3.
That
This
was
is such a weird
that was
opening
a
question.
bad reference.
Anyway, Zach
Hanson.
Tanner writes in, Dear GI crew, at this point, I think we've established any peaceful death we can name aside from Yoda in the Star Wars film is going to be a bit of a stretch. Keeping that in mind, hear this out. Assuming half the planet is experiencing nighttime at any given moment, and assuming
Alderaan does not
and people on the side of the
count.
planet saving half of Alderaan died in their sleep. That doesn't count?
No, because even if they were, I mean, it's not like they were instantly vaporized. You saw the explosion. They were awake and in pain.
I saw so many beds flying through space with people still strapped to it. I'm oh!
Still asleep with their sleep mask on. or-
It's all like Ebenezer Scrooge.
their faces stretching out, sleep mask getting tighter.
All right, here we go.
Oh.
Dominic. Dominic Dasachoki. He says, hello, I'm from Chicago. Is it me? He says, "Is it me or have the idea of a console life saying?"
Wait, which character in Star Wars is this?
How you doing over there, Hanson?
Okay, Dominic from Chicago here. Is it me or have the idea?
Hilarious.
Or has the idea of a console life cycle always seemed strange? A console is created, lives a certain number of years until a successor is made, and it usually dies a slow death, possibly in its sleep, as all attention shifts to this new console. Is there any chance of a future where small dev studios start developing for older systems to save on costs? I feel like there's a potential market here that's only held back by a lack of marketing ambition. But I'll tell you, if I heard a company was releasing a new, good-looking PS2 RPG for the holiday season, I'd buy it. I think a lot of people would. So why don't more small studios make games for older systems?
I mean, I think part of what you're running into there is just like longevity of technology, not just from like a conceptual hype level, but like a functionality level. Like if someone made a new NES game today, what are the odds that you could get that fucking thing to play on an old NES? You know, like those things are like the technology, the physical hardware doesn't necessarily age well.
I guess
I have had a PS2 where like the eject button was barely functional. I guess just over time, the quality of that hardware is going to erode to the point that it just doesn't seem reasonable to assume people still have them.
Don't you think that there are more functioning NESs out there, though, than Switches? Like, even if you take that into consideration of the broken NESs, you know what I mean? I think there's still that option. I mean,
or just his example of PS2, which had a wide install base to begin with. Like, it would be interesting if somebody released a PS2 game today.
You'd just be getting that word out, and then it'd be confusing. Like, where do you put it on a store shelf?
Do people have that hooked up with their TV anymore? Like, can you hook it up to your new TV at this point? Like, do you even have cords that'll didn't have an HDMI port? So
yeah, there are examples of people doing it. Like, people made Pure Solar. What was it for the Genesis, that RPG and stuff. So it is an interesting angle. And honestly, if Pure Solar was just released on Steam initially, we probably wouldn't have even noticed it. But it was a good marketing angle to be like, hey, we're making a new game for the Sega Genesis.
But then they eventually released it on Steam, right?
And PS4.
And I think it sold more there than it ever did on the original.
But in theory, it still got the ball rolling, right?
I think the basic idea, or the thing that stops it from happening, is if you're going to make kind of an old school game like that, you're probably just going to release it on mobile anyway. You know, that like a billion people have a way to play those games that doesn't involve having to dig something out of your closet.
Or PC.
Yeah.
There's also just like the manufacturing angle where, like, I don't know who would you call up if you wanted to make a new Super Nintendo cartridge? Like, hey, I made this game, I designed this game, I think it'll run on a Super Nintendo. How do we make a new cart? How does this work? Even like PS2, I mean, is it tricky to burn a disc to run on a PS2? I have no idea.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like ultimately what it boils down to is like, if you're making a game, you want to move as many copies of that game as possible. You want as many people to experience it. And it's just like more people are more excited about the current hardware that's out there.
Right. The market, I think the market's the real answer to that question. Is like the market shifts and like perception of like what's new and exciting to play. While he may be willing to buy a game, I think enough people are not there and not interested. They're interested in buying PS4 or Xbox One. Maybe on PC you can hook into that like retro like market by releasing on a new system and have like that old feel, like we've seen in a dozen games. You know?
Yeah. But I mean, imagining that the whole market and people's tastes change, and this is a plausible, like this becomes like a profitable idea. I would love them still to be making SNES games, to be making PS2 games.
I heard a new Star Fox game's coming out pretty soon.
Is that right? Oh, that's
Don't
exciting.
even get me started on
Imran
and
was talking about it.
It may change in the future too if, like Sony keeps the PS3 network up and running for a long time. You could release it digitally and not have to worry about the whole manufacturing CDs.
But again, then how do you get buzz surrounding like, hey, everybody go back and plug in your PS3. Isn't this a retro downloading experience?
Look, this wasn't my idea to begin with.
Why won't you defend Dominic? It's an interesting idea, but its enthusiasm in the market is the issue.
I think it also it reminds me of questions like, why do Sony and Microsoft make different consoles instead of teaming up to make one super console and every game everywhere is...
How dare you lump him in with those people?
I'm just
Dominic is a interesting, thoughtful soul, not just a
I'm just saying as a like it's a similar kind of hypothetical scenario that seems to like yes, that would be ultimately a good thing for consumers, and I think people would like it, but that's just not the the reality of the market.
That gosh darn market. Let's
Sorry.
see. This is
Sorry, Dominic, you're cool.
our favorite person. All right, I'm sorry. This person's name is Square Burgers.
That's not a real name.
Anyway, Square
good
Burgers
audio, yeah.
from Chicago, Illinois writes in and says, I was watching episode 3 of the hilarious Martian Gothic Super Replay when this question came to mind. What was the most successful yet most awful game played, in everyone's opinion? Or, if you feel like researching, the lowest scored game that made the most money ever.
So this isn't a game we personally hate that everybody else likes.
What do you think is the most mass market, most played game that is the lowest in quality, is kind of the broad consensus?
Mario Party. Any Mario Party.
Good one.
Is it really that bad, though, Joe? If it
is.
makes everybody laugh and everyone has a good time with it, that's not an old curmudgeon.
Hey, so does Hungry Hungry Hippos. Is Hungry Hungry Hippos a great video game?
No.
It would
But I'd
if it
argue
was
any game
digital
that'll make you
form.
laugh and you can leave saying we had a good time playing it, that's a good video game, right?
That's like half of the replays we do, though, and the games are shit, but we enjoy playing them.
Yeah.
And that's when we have to update the score, saying that all these games are good now because Operation Genesis made us laugh.
All right.
Don't you understand?
I don't know. Like that just to me like it exemplifies the idea of like a game does not get credit for the fact that I enjoy spending time with my friends.
Ouch.
So
I think,
there we go.
All right, that's fair. Do you have a real answer, though?
I was thinking like it's probably some like game that had a franchise attached to it, like some like Star Wars game.
We
like
were just
Master
talking about
Terracasi
this.
or something.
We were just talking
Yesterday,
Harry
right?
Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is one of the
Oh.
best-selling PlayStation 1 games.
Okay.
And
That might be it.
Ooh.
we played that on replay a little while ago. It does not hold up well. It's not a fun game, but everybody loves it. Everybody played it. Probably not the greatest game, but like it hit that peak buzz for Harry Potter,
Mhm.
and it just nailed it. I was thinking like it must be some freeware game. And you start thinking like, well, Solitaire is easy to crap on, but Solitaire,
What
we're a
about
well-designed game.
Minesweeper.
Minesweeper's an option. I thought of Chip's Challenge back in the day. Pretty crappy.
I know I'll probably catch some heat for this one, but Five Nights at Freddy's?
That's actually a great contender.
I mean, I know there are some people out there who love those games and love watching people play them, but like,
Right.
they don't
But
do
if
it
you
for
give
me.
that game to Sid Meier, I don't think it would hold up.
Sid
Harry-
Meier's Five Nights at
God, I would
Freddy's.
love watching that.
Oh,
Just him
man.
jumping every 5 minutes. Ah!
City's scared.
I'd
This
like to
is
see him
not
just
for
take a
me.
week to like redesign that game, or like what's his take?
Yeah,
on
I'd like
it?
to see I'd like to see the Sid Meier reboot of
Yeah.
Five
Oh,
Nights at
man.
Freddy's.
Series of interesting jump scares. Andrew Flanagan says, my actual question is, what would you guys have guessed at the beginning of the year would end up as game of the year, and what would you bet on now?
Oh, interesting. I don't know if my answer's changed. I probably was looking at Zelda. It's pretty high up there.
You would have assumed that would be game of the year?
Well, okay, beginning of the year. What else is coming out? Oh, actually, Red Dead.
Yeah, I assumed Red Dead 2
yeah.
would be game of the year 2017.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
that's not even. Is
Yeah.
that not?
But at the beginning of the year, we
coming out?
thought it was coming out this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And now Mario's kind of a dark horse, but from my survey over the industry, I'd say it's a horse race between, this isn't for us, but just like general consensus, like between Zelda and PUBG.
Forget about like instead of general consensus. What about just like you personally?
Oh, it's Zelda, but PUBG is pretty close below it.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Like for me, it's kind of like my game of the year so far that I don't think is changing is Persona 5, and that's sort of what I was expecting for it. But what did surprise me is sort of right now what's runner up. Like my number 2 game is Horizon, and I was not expecting that I would like it that much.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was mine, and it's still at the top so far.
It's still your number one?
Did you think
Interesting.
at the beginning of the year that was going to be so high?
Well, I would have said Red Dead if I had thought of Red Dead at the time. I figured I would enjoy Horizon. I guess I was going into it optimistic or hopeful that it would turn out well, and
Yeah.
kind of just waiting to see what Guerrilla would screw up. But then they didn't screw anything up. So, well, because I'm not the biggest kill zone fan.
I understand.
Kill. What was its name?
Oh,
The
I
Kill
don't
guys.
know.
Actually,
Kill fan zone, whatever.
Fan
yeah.
zone.
Recently, I went back to my notes from that cover story trip, and I had written down as a reminder to myself, like, this game seems technically like it's going to nail it. And I was like, I'm sure they're going to whiff on this story. I'm feeling confident they're going to whiff on the story. And I haven't finished that game, but it seems like everyone's like, actually, it wraps up surprisingly well.
Yeah, it does.
That's shocking. Henry from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania says, hey, GI crew, I have a question that's been bothering me for a long time, but I need to know. At what point will people quit kissing Nintendo's butt? I mean, I'm a lifelong fan of the Zelda franchise, and Super Nintendo will always be my favorite console, but I feel like we're in an era where they're taking serious advantage of their customer base by selling them the same products over and over again. As a business guy, I totally get they do it because they can, but I've gotten to the point where I'd rather download an emulator of Earthbound before dropping $80 on Super Nintendo Classic. It just doesn't sit right with me. P.S. Super Mario Odyssey does look pretty effing sweet. So,
Kiss.
yeah. What do you guys think? I mean, we talked a little about Super Nintendo Classic earlier in the show, but do you guys feel like people are at a tipping point with the frustration over this crazy mad dash horse race just to try and buy one of their products?
You know, I wrote a big long rant about that when it happened with the NES Classic.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, they're going to figure it out for the Super Nintendo. And the entire time it's like, they're not going to figure it out. They're never going to change any way, how they do this stuff. And then it's the same crap. But apparently it doesn't matter to the core fans.
Well, also it works out well for us because you can just update that story and just add the word super.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
There you go.
Cross
Just
it
put
out.
content
S in
for
front of it.
us.
So easy.
Yeah. I mean, for me, part of it, I agree. I don't like it when anyone kisses any company's ass. Like the idea of specific publisher loyalty
Yeah.
in defiance of the facts is very frustrating.
Yeah.
Where it's like I am, for instance, I'm a big fan of most of BioWare's games, but I have to acknowledge, even though I had a good time with Mass Effect Andromeda, right? That was a sloppy launch, and there was some stuff about that game when it came out that had a serious problem. The fact that you like the games they put out does not mean that you have to like everything they do. And the same thing with Nintendo. The fact that you like playing Mario and Zelda doesn't mean that there's any sort of defense for the bullshit with the Super Nintendo Classic pre-order stuff.
Why do this to your fan base? Do you think does anybody think it's fun to be like, oh, maybe exclusive? If I'm quick enough, I can get this hot pre-order.
Nintendo apparently
No,
does.
everyone hates it.
Go back to the question though. I think there's something hostile behind his question, where it's when are people going to stop kissing their ass? I think they get a fair amount of flack, which is deserved, and they're not perfect. They do a lot of stupid things.
Well, their games are, but yeah, they're imperfect. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But they also do some really good things, and that's why people like them. And they continued to release solid products and some not solid products. But because they have a really good track record and they've stayed consistent, that's why they get the fans they have.
Sucking on that butt
And that's why I'm kissing their ass.
right now.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I mean I think that's a good point. It's people who blindly follow a developer or a publisher bug me just as much as the people who just sort of blindly insist that they're terrible when could just if you don't like playing Mario and Zelda, doesn't mean Nintendo's bad. They just don't make the games for you.
And to be fair to Nintendo, they aren't just releasing the same thing again and again. Especially when you look at the hardware, I guess you could say that about the iterations of the 3DS and stuff like that. But their main consoles have all been wildly different.
I wonder.
And try and do different things.
I think he's just talking about we've all probably purchased Super Mario World
Right.
several times on
Sure.
other systems, and now the idea of well, now you can have it on its own hardware, and everyone's falling over themselves.
Well, you're purchasing the nostalgia in this case with the Super Nintendo Classic. Also, just to as another point of that thing, I think it is slightly overpriced, but that's a decent product. It's cool. Compare it to the Sega Genesis one, which is a piece of crap. At least they're releasing something that is a cool thing that I want to have, and of course I'm frustrated that I can't get it because So anyway,
yeah. Hey, look at this lineup of questions here. Barney writes in from Indonesia, originally from Vancouver, Canada, though. He says, what are your guys' thoughts on the official announcement from BioWare to not provide any DLC for the single-player mode in Mass Effect Andromeda? Well, I agree Andromeda had issues. It's like he was listening to the podcast, Joe.
Oh, wow.
I thought they'd established a decent enough game and story framework to create some compelling single-player DLC. A successful DLC could help to restore confidence with Mass Effect fans and renew interest in purchase of the game. To simply walk away from such a huge title seems very odd to me. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit before and it was kind of like bubbling, but on Sunday, I think it was, or over the weekend, they had a statement. They're like, well, that's it for updates to Mass Effect Andromeda. Bye, everybody!
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's not, unfortunately, I mean, like, we've talked about this in the podcast before. I think I like that game more than most people do.
On planet Earth.
Yeah.
Yes.
But with that being said, I still think that there's something about that that's just poison. There was just so much negativity swirling around that game that you have to ask like whether the effort put into developing anything additional for it is just sort of like, throwing good money after bad.
I mean, it's even No Man's Sky is an interesting analogy to think about. Like, there was also a crazy poisonous launch for those guys, and they've been trying to dig out for a while now. Just had the big update recently, which some people are into. It kind of nuked a lot of planets and whatnot, which is a bizarre, interesting story. But they've been working so hard to dig themselves out of that hole, and it's debatable whether or not they have. And the idea of Mass Effect and EA investing even more money into Andromeda, which was already a 6-year development? 5-year?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
But those are such different experiences too. Like No Man's Sky doesn't have a story. It's just a big sandbox. You can add interesting stuff to that and kind of change how people think about it. I don't know how you would, what story stuff are they going to add on to Mass Effect Andromeda that doesn't make me hate that entire crew of characters or make me hate them less,
Well, they'd be diminished if, the Quarian arc lands and then say, hey, come on board. All the Quarians are having a good time. Let's all tell some jokes.
I don't know. I think they sense a sentiment from the community that sort of like people are kind of done with that game. And apart from just the BioWare faithful.
Yeah.
I think that there's a large number of people who just sort of put that game down and decided they're done with it.
And especially when people seem really excited about Anthem, why not just move on?
Well, that's exactly what the studio is doing. I mean, Joe and I were just at BioWare Montreal. It feels like not that long ago at all. And now they announced that part of that team is going to be helping out with Motive, with Battlefront 2, which is bizarre because the same development floor. Just imagine it's rotating your desk a little bit, and now you're working on Battlefront. And then also some people at BioWare Montreal are going to be supporting Anthem now, coming out of Edmonton. But it's bizarre to think about that cover story trip in retrospect, Joe, just because felt like it was such a long buildup of Montreal, one step at a time, doing DLC, doing multiplayer. Now we're getting Andromeda. Here we go. Let's do it. Oh, people didn't like it, and the studio's basically gone as far as a Mass Effect main development studio. It's just bizarre how fleeting everything in this industry is.
Yeah, well, and then there's also the fact that BioWare's general manager Aaron Flynn left, and while he didn't cite Mass Effect Andromeda specifically, I wonder if there was some sort of pressure because of that to
I'm sure. I mean, it can't be a coincidence that it came out kind of disappointed, and it's all right, general manager, we got to shake things up. And now Casey Hudson, the original creative director for Mass Effect, went back and now is in Edmonton, is going to be leading as general manager for the entire studio, all 3 studios, I guess, at this point. But it is still bizarre to me. I went back and searched it just to double check. Casey Hudson tweeted about Mass Effect Andromeda once in 2015, and that was about the trailer that had Jennifer Hale in it, voicing Shepard, where it was the NASA footage and stuff.
Was he still there at the studio?
No. But that's the only time he ever said, hey, looking good, Andromeda. You would think, don't you think it's a little weird? You would think you would tweet out something like, hey, congratulations to my old buddies at BioWare for getting this out the door or
I don't
something.
know. There's always some, there's always some sort of weird, publicly showing support for a competitor that I think is, I don't think I would be as hesitant about it, but I don't know. Maybe the optics on that are weird.
Yeah, I guess so. It's sad to see Aaron Flynn go. I still think it's probably the most insight into that game's development is a video interview we did during that month of coverage that you can go back and search for. It's Aaron Flynn, Game Informer interview probably, talking about Mass Effect Andromeda. And the first third of that video interview is a lot about Andromeda's development and kind of having to pull in more studios and more talent. And it seemed like it took a lot of heavy lifting to get that game out the door. But I remember on that cover story trip, a huge takeaway was I remember the creative director, Mac Walters, even saying this, we still have content coming in. We'll see how it goes. It might be, the sentiment was this thing's coming in hot, but also the sentiment was this reminds us a lot of Mass Effect 1, and Mass Effect 1 and almost every Mass Effect feels like it's coming in hot to the landing and everything works out okay. And in Mass Effect Andromeda, it was it was a bumpy landing for that baby.
Yeah, it was a bit bumpier. But I do want to mention one thing about this too, because I've been seeing a lot of stories out there in the wake of this the story that the reader's referencing there.
Yeah.
Saying that like, well, Mass Effect as a franchise is done.
Well, I think that was coming from Kotaku had an interesting write-up, and they had sources saying like that EA was putting Mass Effect on hold for a while.
Yeah, and I think and that makes sense. Right? But like it's this weird sort of game of telephone that happens in reporting.
Yeah.
That like I straight up saw stories being reported that were just like Mass Effect as a franchise is dead. And like EA's Patrick Soderlund responded to that specifically by saying like, why would we just say Mass Effect is dead? It's a great universe and like it's a popular series. We just need to make sure we're doing the right thing with it. And I think that's the important thing to take away from this is like, are we going to see Mass Effect Andromeda 2? Probably not. But like as a franchise, I don't think Mass Effect is done.
But it'll take a long time to build that up again.
But yeah, we're not going to see it. We're not going to see it in the next few years.
Hopefully, it's not a Dead Space situation here.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely is. That's an interesting analogy in a couple ways with EA, I guess. But what universe is Anthem in? Have they said, does that start on Earth? Is there any way at some point in Anthem you can go to a Mass Effect planet?
It'd be interesting if it was in like the Dragon Age universe.
I think that's a logical conclusion. Yeah,
Yeah.
it turns out it was in the Sonic Dark Brotherhood universe the whole time.
Oh, yuck.
Anyways, weird state of affairs for Mass Effect. On a lighter note, Jordan writes in and says, hey, Jordan Bays from Overblood here, writing in to give you some info on the Persona 5 completion stat you talked about last week. Joe, do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm trying to remember if that was in emails. So you mentioned that you figured the percentage of players that finished Persona 5 was probably very low. It's actually not low at all. I'm officially incorrect. Guess what the completion rate is? This game's like over a 100-hour game. As of August 21st, guess that completion rate.
105%.
Correct. Can you guys believe it?
So I don't know. I guess my guess would be I put it at like 50. 50? Yeah.
That seems way too high. 36%.
Look, I think it's remarkably high, and it's at 31.7.
Okay.
He says that's a comparable percentage with big games like Uncharted 4, Witcher 3, and Last of Us. Pretty darn good stats for a 100-plus hour game. Absolutely. Also, Tanner from Charleston wrote in and says, I sorted these games by percentage completion. And yeah, so where's it? Persona 5, 31.8 he cites, which is just below Titanfall 2 at 37 and just above Witcher at 30%.
Wow.
The highest rate of completion for any PS4 game.
Yeah.
Guess what it is?
PS4 game.
Yep.
All
Here's
right.
a hint. It's 2 hours long. It's also very good.
What Remains of Edith Finch?
Correctamundo,
Oh.
the highest completion rate. It is at 69.5%.
Very cool.
Weird deal.
Because it's 2 hours long.
There we go, and it's a great game. Adam H says, for example,
No, it's 2 hours long.
that's right. Adam H says, I purchased Uncharted 1 and 2 Greatest Hits Pack purely on a whim, and now it has become a must-play franchise for me. I will be a day one consumer of Lost Legacy. Cool. He says he also randomly fell in love with Ratchet and Clank, buying it on a whim. Have you guys ever found yourself only vaguely interested in a game that became a fast favorite? What games were accidental discoveries for you that became a must-play franchise?
Yeah, accidental discovery. So Prince of Persia, remember when Sands of Time came out?
Yeah.
That was a game where I went in, rented it, and then like came back the next day to return it and buy it because I was like, I like this game enough that I want to own it. And then like I was hooked and like played all the Prince of Persia games until they stopped existing. But yeah, it was that's a good example.
Yeah, I'm with it. I was jumping around on Super Nintendo when I was in college, and I've never been a big 2D Nintendo guy in general.
Okay.
I know it's sacrilegious, but just none of them. It's like I can appreciate it academically, but I'm not really into playing this. Then I stumbled across Yoshi's Island, and I was so taken aback. I don't know why that game, above and beyond any other 2D Nintendo that I can think of at least, it just sunk its teeth into me and became one of my favorite games when I first played it back then. But
You played like the Mario games, right?
I'd never finished them. Like I played a little
Really?
bit at like my aunt and uncle's house or something.
Oh,
But yeah.
crazy.
But like I dabbled with Mario World enough, I guess, and just being like, all right, I get it. I'm not really into it. But Yoshi's Island was like, what the hell? Why aren't people talking more about this? This is amazingly creative.
How much of it was the visuals?
Probably a fair amount. Yeah.
Yeah.
That has a certain impact, definitely.
Mine, I can't remember the genesis of this, but I can't remember really even playing the first one or why I picked it up, but it was the Harvest Moon series is one that's just so far out of my wheelhouse. I never thought I'd enjoy creating a virtual farm, but
Yeah.
that series hooked me on it. I played the was it Rune Factory were the spin-off ones?
Yep.
Yep.
You got it.
And then Stardew Valley, last year totally wrecked me. So
Wrecked
it's
you
just been a
emotionally.
lifelong obsession with those kind of weird. Any game where it has a day schedule where you just can't do enough in that day and you have to go on to the next one, I just can't.
Have you
stop.
played Persona 5?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's scary though.
So one for me, this is a little off topic from the question, but like I was in college and had not I played a lot of games, but I wasn't super plugged into like the industry and series and stuff like that. I just sort of I knew that there were some things I liked and played them a lot, especially RPGs, which have a long time investment. So I was walking around in a store and saw Chrono Cross on the shelf, and I was like, "Oh, I really like that Chrono Trigger game." I don't know how many of there are in this series now,
Really?
or whatever,
Oh, wow.
but I think I had just finished Final Fantasy VIII, and I saw the Squaresoft name on Chrono Cross. And I was like, "Oh, I know that company, and I like their stuff, and I like that Chrono Trigger game." Yoink! And I just bought that game on a whim, not even knowing if it was recent or not or what.
You didn't
And,
look up GameSpot's Perfect 10 or anything going into it?
No, I knew. All I knew is that it had Chrono in the name, and I liked that Chrono game once. So it's yeah, okay, let's give it a shot, and just ended up playing the hell out of that game.
And you're like, God, this reminds me a lot of American politics.
Oh yeah, I think we referenced this last week too. Yeah,
Yeah, the dumb president lineup thing.
yeah.
It's pretty good.
There we go. Ryan Trombley from Rogers, Minnesota says, "Hello, GI crew. I want to start this email by saying I find Ben Hansen's sarcasm and smartass comments very funny." He wrote
Are you
that.
reading that right?
You read that? Yeah. But he says,
Okay, I like where
shut
this is going.
up. No, he says, but I dare Hansen dare
All right, we got another
we got a
dare.
dare.
to try and make it through a podcast without making any smartass comments or condescending laughs at anyone. I
Already
think this
failed.
would be even better if Tack was on this episode. I think the tortured look on Hansen's face would be hilarious. I purposely kept this towards the end, but I will now no longer scoff at any of you or laugh at you or make
Interesting that you
sarcastic
got rid of
smartass
Tack at
comments.
this
No. You said you have to go a whole episode, so that's next week.
I mean, look, he would like for it to happen.
no,
I'm not gonna,
I mean, then you failed the dare already. You can't say you've tried it.
I think doing a quarter of a dare is still satisfactory for a dare.
Yep.
So you're saying it's off then? Dare's pre-broken.
I'm saying do it next week. You can't say it applies
That
to
would be-
any time this week.
I disagree. I don't think I could make it through that Madden conversation earlier without trying to at least make a joke.
So then you failed
Yeah,
the
then
dare.
you failed.
And you knew this question was coming too.
No, I mean, you sorted through these, Jeff.
No,
You remember
get outta
that.
here.
Sorry, Ryan. Anyways, Joe Elisa from Moselle, Illinois says, first off, you guys, thank you for the podcast. You're welcome. With the remake of It about to hit theaters and The Dark Tower just releasing, among other Stephen King properties, I was wondering if you thought any of his books could be decently adapted to video games. I know adapting from book to film is tough, and book to game is probably just as difficult, but it'd be interesting to see what someone like Telltale could do with a Stephen King property. What do you guys think?
Telltale. Why start there? I don't know. Anyway,
Are you just disgusted at that concept?
I think there are two options I have thought about this question before.
Oh, really?
So it's I think that The Stand would be best suited to a narrative style Telltale game. However, I think what would make a better game and a more one that I would want to play more is more of a city builder centered around needful things. So
What is that?
You come to town. You come to town as a Leland Gaunt, and it's set up. It's
Stop. Is that a character's name?
Yeah, so Needful Things is a story about basically the devil comes to town and has a shop full of things that people in town want.
Oh, it's just a ripoff of a Twilight Zone episode. Okay.
But
it's a ripoff
they-
of a Rick and Morty episode.
yeah. But
What'd
they
you say
all
the-
have a price.
This is
So-
exactly Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Leland
That's good.
Gaunt?
Yeah, as the main character.
I would play that.
So it's not so much a city builder as much as I guess one of those item shop simulator games, right? Where
Yeah.
it's you get what people want, you sell them for a high price, you get to see the horrible consequences when they misuse the item for their own, enrichment.
That's good. There'd be
that
so
is
much talking, though, because they'd come up to the stand. They have to be like, here's my life story. Here's why I want this item.
You know what it should be is Stardew Valley, where you go around and build relationships and then sort of
Learn about 'em.
give people gifts. You learn about them. You find out which item would
Ruin their life.
pervert their lives the most, and then you give it to them.
That's
That would be
perfect.
good.
That's
and
pretty
then,
good.
and then you watch their life day by day fall into ruin and catastrophe,
Yeah.
and then you steal their house.
Perfect.
Can we just appreciate for a second that right now Tim is screaming the mist at this YouTube video? Just nonstop.
And with the messed up part, we should let him know that we can hear him.
Yeah.
I was
Then
going to bring
shut
that up
up.
actually, naturally, because as he's screaming right now, the mist was part of the inspiration for the original Half-Life. So in a way, this adaptation from Stephen King has kind of worked in a twisted route.
We got the best video game ever.
That's right. So keep doing
Yeah.
it, you idiots.
Come on.
And keep going.
But you can buy his stuff for like $1, right? You can buy rates.
The light. I think so. Yeah. I mean, they're adapting everything.
Yeah.
There's that weird TV show where it's like the shared universe of all of Stephen King stuff.
They could do that. They could do a Smash Brothers version of that.
Yeah.
Where all like what Carrie is fighting Cujo, and
It's
yeah, who knows?
perfect.
Yeah,
Also, I think Shining Force is based on The Shining.
I'm sure.
Chris Bunyog writes in and says, "Hello, crew. Ben Hansen mentioned last podcast that he recorded the ending to Final Fantasy VIII on VHS, and it made me think of extracurricular geeky things I did as a kid. I recorded game endings on VHS, recorded comprehensive soundtracks for Mega Man games on cassette tapes, and even made my own hand-drawn Mortal Kombat 2 moves guides. What extra geeky things can you guys remember doing as a kid?"
I was really cool.
So it's just like kissing
don't
too many
know.
cheerleaders is the geekiest thing you did?
Got my black belt just like Shinobi when I was like 10.
Uh-huh.
Did
think
mushrooms just like Mario.
Yeah.
I think I did a lot of Digimon role playing. I think it was a thing.
Boy.
Were you done, or was that your nerd?
Oh no, I have a full scroll
Okay,
here.
great.
I remember also, this is very dark, is playing episode 1 Pod Racer with my friends, and then whoever was playing, the other person would stand behind them, and every time they hit a bump or another pod racer would hit them, they'd like shake the chair, try and convince ourselves like we're living in the game. It was really cool.
I would also direct anyone watching or listening to this to check out our extra live stream from last year to watch Ben Hansen's video amateur Pokemon movie.
I would call it amateur porn Pokemon movie, yeah, where I dress up as Misty.
Misty.
Which
Right,
I think is the geekiest thing I've ever seen anyone do.
It's pretty geeky.
Yeah.
Unless you count for Jeffem.
I thought about this a long time, and the only thing I could come up with was once one of my friends and he had a bunch of wrestling figures that we like took to the playground to play, but we were in like middle school. And even as we were walking to the playground, I was like, man, we are too old for this. We should not be doing this.
But then you went there and did it?
But then we went there and did it anyway, and we had a great time. With
What do you-
Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan.
I understand like Pokemon, Digimon, dorky crap, but playing with wrestling figures, what do you do? Look, I'm going to punch you down to the mat.
Yeah, you just throw them around at each other. It's like any other, little action figure.
Yeah, but like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I understand. Like, it's fun. They have like cool abilities. But when it's just like, hey, watch some guy who pretends to be hurt in the middle of a ring, it's less entertaining.
We didn't even watch wrestling. It was just,
okay.
Guys beating each other up in their underwear.
Hot.
I remember playing the Pokemon card game. Remember the card game came out?
Yeah.
Like me and my friends got into it. And I remember going to a Fazoli's. Do you guys even have those here? It's like an Italian fast food place.
No.
But they give away free breadsticks, which is... So we sat in the Fazoli's for like 2 hours trying to get these free breadsticks every time they came by and playing Pokemon. And the guy was like, what are you guys doing over here? And we're like, oh, Pokemon. We tried to explain it. He's like, this looks really nerdy. It's like, yeah.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
And then you said, no, give us the breadsticks.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're like, we're in college, sir. Get out.
I designed a lot of Mega Man robot bosses.
Ooh.
Oh,
wow.
And I also, this is probably even worse, is I designed a lot of espers that I wanted implemented into Final Fantasy VI.
Oh, boy. And you didn't know the company Squaresoft.
What was the best
No,
Mega
I
Man
did.
boss?
Like Squaresoft was the name that I knew of. Like, I like their games. However, not video game related, but super, super dorky. I want to see if I can find this VHS. Maybe it can be my embarrassment box on Extra Life this year. Is I recorded myself dressed up in different costumes, lip syncing and dancing to various Weird Al Yankovic songs.
Wiener
course,
tucked
Weird
between
Al.
your legs?
No.
Oh,
No,
I see.
flapping free, man. I made a bunch of nude videos.
To Weird Al Yankovic songs, of course.
Come to think of it, we probably can't air those.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, Just Beat It was probably pretty good.
Yeah, hold a meaning to the word yank. Anyways, Nathan from Roanoke, Virginia says, here's a real absolute brain buster for you guys, as long as you're ready.
Okay.
Seems simple. Maybe it's not. What button do you press when a game says press any button to continue?
Oh, interesting.
Oh, I sit there paralyzed looking for the any button.
Old Simpson.
Probably X on the PlayStation controller.
Left on the D-pad every time. Left on the D-pad. No, I don't. Yeah, probably X. I don't think I'd go.
Probably right side face button. Circle. I guess it would be circle or A on Xbox.
A
Right?
Japanese lad over here.
I'm old school. I hit start.
Really?
Even when it just says options?
Whatever options or I don't even know what those buttons are called anymore. The start
Share
button.
and option buttons.
Everyone is just called stupid now. I think I might have done that up until this generation now, but with the start button being removed,
It still feels gross, even after using it for like 3 or 4 years.
it's so stupid. In the start screen, in title screen, when it says press options to continue or like press options to begin or something, it's like, what? Just
Just use
Call
one of
it
the face
press
buttons.
start.
Yeah.
also, what's with
great.
that touchpad on PS4 controller? Come on. When was the last time you guys used that?
You mean the map button?
Yeah, exactly. For anything other than a map.
Occasionally I like it. So like on The Witcher, if you rubbed it down on the pad, it would take you straight to the map, which I thought was a cool feature.
Oh, okay. All right.
Probably
That's
the
good.
one time I remember like, oh, the touchpad can do cool things.
Look
I
at
press
this.
it all the time on Diablo 2. Half of it takes you to your inventory and the other half takes you to your skills.
Diablo
So,
3.
Yeah, that's all.
yeah, that's
cool.
what I meant.
So, Aaron from Cleveland says, seriously, podcast crew, help. Help.
All right, I'm here to help.
That's
this
all
a
the email
dare?
said. I don't know what he, no.
Was that from Tim Turry?
He says, the wife says, how I put my burgers together is stupid and doesn't affect the taste.
It probably is.
It's bottom bun,
Okay.
ketchup, patty, cheese, bacon if available, lettuce, pickles, mustard, top bun. In that order, always and forever. The wife is a maniac, and she does bottom bun, patty, cheese, everything else, ketchup and mustard on top. What's next? Not cutting the grass in a pattern? Am I crazy? I like your wife's way of doing it.
Yeah, I
That's
don't know.
how I do mine too.
It seems like that's the restaurant standard, sir.
Wife
He is
sounds like
crazy.
a normal person. I
definitely
wonder
crazy.
so every time anytime I've tried to put like mustard or ketchup on the bottom bun,
Yeah.
I feel like it drips out more easily. I don't know why that is. Does anybody else
I
experience
guess
this?
I can see that, but I can never imagine not having bottom bun and then the burger.
So I do have methods for this.
Uh-huh.
Like top bun, ketchup and mustard. Then tomato, because the ketchup and mustard serve as like a sort of adhering agent that keeps it from sliding around too much.
Yeah.
Then a layer of like lettuce, because then that keeps the tomato juice from just seeping out all over the place.
Uh-huh.
It's sort of like a protective seal there.
Right. Then a sponge.
Then cheese.
I see.
Then bun. Or then patty, then bun.
So Brian Vore, who's now at 2K, he plays with wrestling action figures for a living, I believe now. He has a thing, and I always think of it, but it doesn't bug me. But he is incapable of eating a burger where the tomato is touching ketchup.
Really?
It grosses him out. He's like, they're both the same thing. You can't do it. They're the same substance. They can't be touching. They can't be
good price.
touching.
It's like making out with your cousin? Is that what it is?
It's like they
He said
should.
it's exactly the same as making out with your cousin.
It's like they should be touching.
Yeah, but it weirds him out that they're like close to the same thing but aren't. And so now every time I'm squirting ketchup and it hits a tomato on my burger, I think, oh, this should weird me out if I were Brian Vore, but I don't believe it does.
But I'm not Brian Vore.
Now and forever.
Jeff Cork came to me one day and he was super excited. He had a video that he wanted to show me on his computer.
Yeah.
And he played it, and it was just teaching him that when you hold a hamburger bun, you put your pinkies on the bottom so that you kind of squeeze it, and that way all the crap doesn't fall out. He was telling me that just blew his mind. I was like, that's how everyone eats a hamburger,
Yeah,
right?
wait, pinkies on the bottom?
Yeah, the pinky's on the bottom. That way
hold it
you're
like this.
squeezing it together. So that
So your pinkies are
he would
touching
eat
the
it with
meat?
just the thumbs, and everything would fall out for like 40 years, apparently.
Hang on. I don't know what the hell you got. I've
Yeah,
never
I
had a
don't know what you're talking
problem
about
everything constantly falling out of a burger. I don't think I'm using my pinkies.
If
Every
you,
now
if you
and
hold
then.
it like this and then you bite,
Okay, show us again.
that everything out like
Fast forward.
like
rewind.
you're pinching here at this end, so then everything sort of just like blots out that way. If you do,
I'm not Hercules. I'm not pinching it
like
so
that.
hard that it's like exploding out the back.
I'm not saying you're going like.
Well, I've never had
Well,
that problem.
apparently Cork had this problem for 40
He's a
years,
very
and it
strong
took a
gentleman.
life hack to teach him.
I'll be
You know what you guys are
damned.
doing wrong is you're eating burgers instead of pizza.
Shut up.
Next question.
All right.
Next question comes from Ben Hansen, and he writes in and says, Joe, did you see that weird trailer for that version of Final Fantasy 15 on iPhones?
Now I think this should get question of the week.
I think this is a very good one. I wanted to talk to you about this, Joe, because
Yeah.
there's some news from Gamescom. I think we'll probably talk about it more next week. But this one is so bizarre to me because I remember on the Final Fantasy 15 cover story trip, I believe at a certain point we talked to director Tabata, and he's like, we're not interested in doing a Final Fantasy 15 2. This would be a self-contained thing. And that gives the impression that, like, okay, cool, one and done. Here we go.
Yep.
Maybe a couple side projects with the movie, the anime. But the side projects and the width of Final Fantasy 15's versions and ports have gotten so absurd that now they're making a version for mobile. Reeves, Jeffem, have you seen this?
Is this the RTS one?
No.
That's all I see is a video for that RTS thing.
Well, it's not an RTS. It's like a Clash of Clans clone. That is,
Okay.
they are pushing that so hard. It's every ad on Snapchat I get. Where I get done looking at someone's Snap, and then it's just an ad for this Final Fantasy 15 mobile game set within the 15 universe. Just real quick before we get into this version, I guess we should explain Kingsglaive, Final Fantasy 15 movie, Brotherhood's the anime, King's Tale is the arcade beat-em-up spin-off of Final Fantasy 15.
Yep.
Final Fantasy 15, A New Empire, is that online strategy game, the Clash of Clans one. Monster of the Deep, Final Fantasy 15, is the VR fishing game. Justice Monsters 5 is the iOS bizarre spin-off game as
And
well.
in-game of 15.
That's right. And King's Knight technically is within the Final Fantasy 15 universe. That's the remake of Square's first game that's on mobile as well. And now they're making a version of Final Fantasy 15, which is insanity. I can't think of another instance of this where, in theory, it's all of Final Fantasy 15 except, and it's like same animations and like camera for the cutscenes at least, except they made like chibi weird versions of all the characters.
Wait, what?
So
Wait, in the same story?
Yes.
it's not totally clear, but I mean, like, they talk about it like it being an all new retelling. So I think it's not. It's also episodic, which is weird. But
Yeah.
like basically what it is a retelling of Final Fantasy 15 story split up into 10 episodes. First one is free. But like from the trailer, it's not. It doesn't seem like it's just like, hey, it's Final Fantasy 15, but just with a different coat of paint that works better on mobile.
It certainly looks like that in some ways, not the combat.
Right. So what I mean is, like, I don't think that this experience is going to be like, oh, it's just like Final Fantasy 15, but a different art style. I think that they are definitely going to be like the content will be different. I think. I don't think it's just going to be all of the same big quests and all of that stuff. I think that it's going to be a more compact version.
I would assume so, but it's so crazy to see cutscenes and like Sydney's introduction and stuff done with just this completely different art style. Reeves, you've got to check it out. It's wild.
It sounds weird.
What seems especially weird about it to me is that, like, the art style, I don't like the art style, I guess.
I
Like,
kind of do. It kind of looks like Final Fantasy 4 on DS or something.
what I was hoping is that it would look a little more like World of Final Fantasy. I think they really hit a great sort of like storybook, like diorama looking chibi thing
Yeah.
that I kind of was hoping that this would be lifting when I heard the news of what it was. And then I watched the trailer and I was like, it just looks like, I don't know. It has that same just general unimpressive 3D RPG on iOS that I'm just like, no.
But to be fair, like, the story is also unimpressive.
Look, I'm excited. I didn't finish 15, and there's a part of me that is really intrigued seeing that combat because I wasn't really in love with the combat of 15 from the couple hours that I played of it for the finished release. And the idea of just like an overhead camera isn't whizzing around everywhere. It's much more simple and streamlined. I think I'm kind of into it. There's a small part of me that wants to play through all of that mobile version just to see what it's like on
I'm
iOS.
curious to see how the action worked and if they did change anything. Are they going to have side quests and all that? Like, how do you manage that?
I bet it's going to be more similar than you think, Joe. If
We'll
I had to
see.
go on a limb and say nothing.
they're doing it in 10 episodes though. And like the game has more chapters than that.
Oh, is that right? So
Yeah.
they're going to section off in really
So
bizarre ways?
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, talking about the game
Right.
itself, I also, in this run-up, I forgot to mention they are releasing 4-player DLC for Final Fantasy 15, and then Episode Gladiolus, Prompto are out now. They're releasing Episode Ignis. Like they're still rolling out insanely ambitious DLC.
And they announced the PC version.
That's right. 15 will never leave us.
Did that game sell well? Like
It did.
It
Yeah.
felt like maybe it's just my experience with it of like being like sort of let down by the whole experience. But I'm like, it didn't seem like it was received well, right?
It was.
Fans really liked it.
I think Joe really liked it. I think overall it seemed like okay.
I mean, I did not review this game.
That's
but
right.
Reiner gave it an 8.5. I think
Right.
I think it got a lot of scores in the 8s and some higher.
Yeah.
I mean, some lower, obviously too. But
Sure.
I mean, I think if I don't know what its meta score or whatever is offhand, but I think it's probably somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
right.
I think that qualifies as like well received. If I'm also remembering news stories from the time correctly, I feel like there was something about it like being one of like the fastest selling.
Well, here was the
entry in
catch with
series
that.
or
I remember
something,
it
but-
seemed like, because that was the day of launch, it seemed like Square had that ready to go because it was the first Final Fantasy launched worldwide on the same day.
Mhm.
And so the press release sent out was like, it's the fastest selling worldwide Final Fantasy on day one ever.
Oh.
It was like, well, yeah, but it was the first to ever be launched on the same day throughout the
Worldwide.
entire world as well.
That seems like splitting hairs. I wouldn't. Well, whatever. Maybe.
It seemed bizarre. But pop quiz, Joe.
Okay.
How many of the 15 mainline Final Fantasies are available on iOS right now? Final Fantasy 1,
Yes.
2,
Yep.
3,
Mm-hmm.
4,
Mm-hmm.
5.
I don't know about 5.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
6,
Yes.
7,
Yes.
8.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah.
No.
8 isn't.
8 isn't. 9.
9 is.
Yes. 10.
No.
11.
No.
Weird thing, I completely missed it. Nexon is making a mobile version of Final Fantasy 11. They showed like footage and screens of it last year.
But it's not out yet.
It is not officially out yet,
Okay.
and now 15's on the way. Obviously, 13 isn't ported to iOS. So a shocking amount
That's
of
a
those
lot of
games.
them.
Yeah.
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 Wait, why did it skip 8?
I wonder why
feel like-
8 and not 9. That's,
I don't know.
Or,
Also-
reversed.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? And 9's on Steam as well.
Mhm.
8 isn't up there either. It's weird that they're bypassing 8 like that.
Huh.
Hey, Square, put Final Fantasy Tactics on Steam for the love of God.
Is it not?
No,
That's on
it's-
iOS.
It's a really good game, and I want to replay it.
But it is
Yeah.
on iOS, right?
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's like that saga, Final Fantasy 15, just will not stop. And I feel like it's been quietly bubbling in the
Well,
background, but it's worth looking at every once in a while
here's-
to try to figure out what the hell is going on.
I feel like they're undoing some of the goodwill that I had going into this. Like again, I really love Final Fantasy 15. I'm excited that they're doing all of these like updates and DLC for it, but I feel like they're sort of squandering some of the goodwill they cultivated, because when they were going into it, they're like, look, we're not going to do a bunch of sequels. You're not going to we're not going to Final Fantasy 13 this over like multiple installments. So then that gets you feeling like, okay, they get it. They understand how they need to like regain the trust of their consumers. And then it's almost like they just couldn't help themselves. They see this game that's moderately popular, well received, and then they're like, we got to exploit it.
Is it that, or is it just a matter of, hey, that game costs so much money financially, we need to squeeze these assets and this engine in as many new ways as we can, and that means spin-offs, weird ports, everything you can imagine.
I'm sure that's it. I'm sure like from a business perspective it makes sense, but
Yeah.
from a fan perspective, like and they talked about this when we went to go look at Final Fantasy 15, is that like part of what has eroded like the fan opinion of that franchise is excessive spin-offs and porting and side projects, to the point where it's like the Final Fantasy name becomes diluted because it's hard to figure out like, oh, this is a core numbered one, so this is a real Final Fantasy.
Right.
Like at this point, the sea of side projects overshadows the like handful of actual releases, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But VR fishing, you gotta do.
Actually, I played some of that at E3. It's kind of funny.
Oh, really? You liked it?
Yeah.
It is a very silly idea. Oh, also, Tabata teased at Gamescom that they're going to port 15 to the Switch, too. So
But you know that's going to be the iOS like this iOS game.
I cannot imagine.
It's got to be.
With touch controls, no.
I think it's going to be.
I wonder if they'd make a new version that's somewhere in the middle.
with those assets, but
Right,
I mean-
but with the controller support.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it'll control like a normal game, but I
Yeah.
bet like the game you see on the screen is going to be the same as what you see on iOS.
I think that's it. That's my dream Final Fantasy 15. That's the one I want to play.
you just think like
All right,
visually
buddy.
they can't pull that off
I don't think so.
on Switch.
I can't imagine.
All right.
Otherwise, they would have released it on last gen, and they didn't, right? I'm not missing something.
Hmm?
It wasn't on PS3 360. They didn't have a version for
no.
that. Okay, then yeah, totally not.
Huh.
Weird World. Anyways, what do you guys like for your favorite?
That Ben Hinson question.
I thought that was really
Yeah.
killer. Yeah, I think that's really,
Really,
good
really good.
stuff.
No.
I like the old system releases.
Was that the first one?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that one was pretty good.
Other than Star Wars. Nintendo Ass Kiss is also an option. Games we didn't expect to like, but came out of nowhere. Stephen King. Those are kind of my 4 contenders.
I like that first one.
You like the old system one?
Yeah.
Yeah, give it to that
Jeff
guy.
Market Fava? All right. And as we all remember, his name is clearly Dominic from Chicago.
What was his last name?
It's confusing. I don't want to try and pronounce it. But Dominic from Chicago will send you something real nice. Thanks so much for mailing in. And for now, we are going to jump to an interview with Bruce Shelley about Ensemble and RTS design in general and the evolution of the Age of Empires series and the future of Age of Empires. So stay tuned for that. Bruce Shelley, welcome to the Game Informer Show, sir.
Thank you.
It's a real honor to have you. Thank you for at the last second agreeing to Skype in and get Skype working for us.
You're welcome. I'm not the most technical guy in the world, but
I find that hard to believe.
Well, I don't code. I don't write code. You know, I started making games and they're paper and board games, and I transitioned to computer games, but I was not a coder. There was very few coders around in the 70s when I got started.
Have you learned to love computers, or is it a constant battle of like, come on, programmers, just try and get this vision from pen and paper down?
No, I'm pretty excited about computers. I can't imagine life without a computer and without the internet. One of my brothers is a builder, and he's very tough on the internet. And he says, "Well, Bruce, when you say you can't live without it, I guess I got to get it myself." But I couldn't live without it.
Good. So, just in general, you go so far back in the industry, working with Sid Meier back at Microprose and everything. What do you see as the role of those kind of the seasoned masterclass game designers like yourself? What is their role in the industry today? What do you think is your mission?
I never thought of it, but I think wherever I've been the oldest employee by 20 years, and I think it's to pass on. It's just think about the fundamentals of design and of game development, what we're doing, and how do we make the magic happen a second time. When you make a great game, we got in the habit of disassembling it and trying to figure out what went right, and then try to learn from that process. So I've been involved with several startups, and I think I've been able to pass on some fundamental principles about developing games that have stood well over the test of time.
It's interesting you say making it happen a second time. So, I mean, the first time just lightning strikes, and then a lot of effort is put into analyzing why did that lightning strike?
I guess there's some credence to the idea of lightning, but we did games. When I started making paper games and board games, we basically built prototypes and played with them. And it wasn't like an engineering problem. You started with a piece of paper and a map, and you started putting parts on it, and you started pushing people around and writing down rules on a yellow pad. And it was a prototyping process, and we designed by playing. Now, as far as I know, that's still how many, many great games are built. So that we're learning that, in paper days. It carried over very well to computer days, because that's how Sid Meier built games. And I went to work with him at Microprose. That's how he made his games. He wasn't using paper and boards. He was doing computer stuff, and it was all prototyping. He had half a dozen prototypes on his computer at any one time. And he was always noodling with them and playing a little bit, and we would change it every day. And he was not one for writing down anything. There was no documentation. There was no design notes or design documents. And when we started Ensemble Studios, I was one of the few people who had any experience building games, but most of the guys had built software of some kind. So I pushed the idea that let's prototype as fast as we can and then play it every day and see how it comes together. I've seen it done elsewhere. I spent some time working in Germany, and they basically had their design done before they started programming, and they were loath to change the design after they started building it. They were building it to a design specification, and I felt really uncomfortable with that, because what if you find something's not playable, it's not working right? Our process was that we were changing it all the time on a daily basis, and it came together well if we relied on our instincts as game players to tell us when we were doing something right or wrong, then the game would come together. I felt confident it would come together well. That's how Sid Meier built games. That's how Ensemble Studios built games. I believe that's how Blizzard builds games. I believe it's how Brian Reynolds builds games. So some of us we all come from the same school, the Sid Meier School of Design, you could say. But I think that works. I'm not so sure that this engineering process works where the design is done up front.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that you look up to Sid Meier in some ways. Has he been a big teacher? A lot of guidance for him throughout the years.
Actually, not really. I mean, I worked with him intensely for 3 years.
Yeah.
I was his assistant, his producer, his designer, his writer, everything that he didn't want to do. That was my job, and but we would have long conversations. We would sit around and chat about what we were doing, and he was the first person I ever met who actually tried to dissemble what we were doing and think about what was happening when somebody was being entertained or not entertained, and how do we build that into our process. He gave the first speech I ever heard about game development, and I recorded it, and I remembered a lot of the things he said. I've carried him with me forever, and we did work intensely. But he's a very private guy. And when I left, I mean, we were certainly in touch. We went on a cruise together one time with our wives, and we've spoken together at conferences and stuff, and we chat. But it's not like I learned what I learned from him. And then I moved on, and I started working with a whole new group of people, and we started learning from each other. It wasn't like I called him up for questions. I mean, we just went off on our own, and based on what we all knew from our own experiences, we built our own next group of games.
Yeah. Well, talking about prototyping a little bit, in Big Gamescom video recently, they were talking about the history of Age of Empires, and you had a wonderful segment throughout that video, and you were talking about before Age of Empires 1, Ensemble, you guys were working on some sort of survival game on an island. What was this?
Well, that was just we needed something. We needed something to work on. We're talking about 5 or 6 people, employees, and we started building. We needed an idea for a game, obviously, and the one idea we kicked around several, and the one that I remember was this concept of the Lost experience. Being marooned on an island with a handful of people, and then they had to, it was cool. You had to explore the island. You had to gather materials. There were other people there all of a sudden that you had to compete with or fight with. And they had a lot of elements that sounded like they'd be interesting. And then we came up, I think it was Tim Dean, one of my colleagues, who said, you got to play these games. And then he was pointing us to Warcraft and Command and Conquer.
Yeah.
He says, this is really cool. You got to play these. And when we started playing those, it might have been Tim's idea. I don't remember now who, but somebody said, why don't we build a historical game like these and tie it into the stuff you'd done with Civilization, these historical civilizations. And that was the vision statement for Age of Empires 1.
It seems so simple just to be like, yeah, Civilization meets Warcraft. Let's go. Was it that easy of a pitch internally?
It was pretty easy internally. And it's funny because you say that, obvious. And I remember doing the first PR tour in San Francisco when the game was getting close to launch. And I met a journalist in San Francisco named Elliot Chin, and he says, this is so obvious. Why didn't anybody else come up with this? And we've been working over a couple of years, and no one else. Because I remember specifically there were 50-some real-time strategy games in development while we were building Age 1. I think Computer Gaming World was a popular magazine at the time, and they reported on these 50-some games, and every one of them was either science fiction or fantasy, following in the footsteps of either Warcraft or Command and Conquer. We were the only ones who had decided to do something in a historic theme, and it turned out to be a very winning choice.
Yeah, for sure. So when you look back on that game's development, what moments stand out to you? What are the most pivotal moments in Age of Empires 1's development?
Well, I think a critical moment was the decision to make the game, the vision of it. It was obvious. That was very important because then we had a winning concept. Then we had to build it. A second big step for me was, I think I remember, was we sat down one day at a chalkboard, a whiteboard, and drew up all the things that worked in Warcraft and Command and Conquer, what they were doing really well. And that was kind of like the minimum requirement we had to do. If we're going to compete with these guys, we got to be as good as they are at this stuff.
Yeah. And
then we made another list over here, which what are they not doing? And that's our opportunity. And the historic theme was one of those things. I remember randomly generated maps was something I liked from Civilization. We've done that. multiple victory conditions. There was a list of things, a different look at the graphics, a realistic look at the graphics. We made a list of stuff we would do differently, and I think that was an incredible point for me because I carried that idea forward in the future. You have to differentiate your game at a very high level with the competition. People got to look at it right away and say, well, that's not something I've played before. That's different. And then when they actually play it, it's got to be innovative. It's got to be something going on there they hadn't done before to hold their interest again. So you get them with the differentiation and you hold them with the innovation. And then you can borrow a lot. There's a lot of certainly some of the principles can be carried forward from game to game, but you have to be different and you have to innovate in order to succeed.
Was it a tough game to develop? I mean, I know you're still in the whiteboard phase, but it sounds again so remarkably simple. Like, well, they did this, we'll do this, and delivered.
Yes, it was hard. We had to do a lot of stuff from scratch. The people had never built games, and they were software engineers and artists. We were lucky. We found some really good artists out of the Art Institute of Dallas that could really model well and animate. We had some terrific engineers who could code. Angelo Loudon was the lead engineer, and he built the engine. And it was a struggle. Tony Goodman did a great job of finding people as we needed them. We needed a guy to do this. We needed a guy for graphics. We needed a guy for communication engineering. And he was very good at finding the right person to put in that slot. So even as a small team, everybody was pretty competent at their skill base. And they all had an interest in games. So, I forgot, there was another great moment was when we was multiplayer for the first time, because every day we played a little Warcraft or a little Command & Conquer as we worked on it. And then we got to the point where our prototype was playable. And that was a huge day. We're all up and down the halls in our office building, and we're playing against each other in like an 8-player game, and it was just like a cheer. It was like now we play Age every day until it's done, and that was and I know and then years later I would say whenever we got to that point in every next succeeding game, I knew we were guaranteed to be good because our process would work.
Yeah, and so you were funded fully by Microsoft at that point, or how does the involvement with Microsoft intertangle with this?
We were funded by Tony Goodman's other company. Tony Goodman, the founder, he and his partner John Booscott, and he had 2 other partners. They had an Ensemble Corporation, which was software for banks and databases and stuff. And they funded the start of Ensemble. And Angelo Loudon came over, and Tony came over from the other corporation, and some other people came over eventually as well. And they funded us for a long time. And when we got to a point where we had a playable prototype, we started talking to publishers. I know we made a road trip across the country one time. We showed the game to Hasbro Interactive, and we flew across country to Microsoft. Microsoft had sent some people to Dallas to look at some other games, and Tony Goodman had been in contact with them, I think with Stuart Mulder, and Stuart told his guys, Ed Ventura is the one I remember specifically, he says, drop over to this office and see what they've got. Because they pinged us somewhere, and Microsoft, you have to remember, was really new in the games at that time. They hadn't had any big success.
Yeah. So
they came over to our studio. They asked for an hour of our time, and they stayed for 4 hours. And they asked if we could come to Seattle and show it, or Redmond, and show it to more people up there. And that's when we made our road trip. We showed it to a couple other publishers as well. But we were inclined to work with Microsoft if we could. They're the largest publisher in the world, software publisher in the world. Lots, empty, deep pockets. We thought that if we could possibly work with them, that's who we wanted to work with. And they turned out to be the most proactive about trying to sign the game. The people like Stuart Mulder specifically, I'd met him years earlier, and I think there was a comfort level with him and us, and they pursued it. So they started funding the game at that point.
Was it a thrill for you? Are you interacting with Bill Gates at this process? Are you starstruck on a tech level by the whole thing?
Well, it was thrilling to know that you were working with Microsoft, absolutely. And but there was a struggle because they had their own rules about software development, and they were worried about costs a little bit, And eventually, I think what happened, they came around to the idea that this was a chance to hit a home run, and they asked us to do like an Asian concepts, because they wanted to sell the game in Asia, which is something we had not planned. And so they had some requests from us, and we took longer than they would have liked probably, but I think they ultimately decided that this game had a chance to be a home run for them, and they were going to invest in it, and they were going to stick with it, and it paid off for everybody.
Yeah, I think at some point you mentioned that Bill Gates wanted to make it more educational, or he saw the potential on an education basis with Age of Empires 1.
That was a couple years later when we had H2, and there was a Microsoft internal presentation, like 10 teams that were building software for Microsoft were set up in stations in a big room, and Bill came in with his advisors, and they walked around the room, looked at every station, and he stopped at ours and spoke to Tony and I. We were showing him what was going to become Age of Empires 2. And he said, they told us you have 10 minutes, but if he wants to talk longer, you talk to him. As long as he asks questions, you keep talking, but you can only talk for 10 minutes unless he asks questions. And he spoke with us much longer than 10 minutes. And one of the comments was, there's so much going on here. It should just be an educational product. And that's when I said, well, I don't think so. I think it won't go anywhere unless we entertain people first. And then I think there's a lot of education that could be learned, but like we got to entertain people first.
Yeah, educational aspect is a nice runoff. Yeah, people get to learn about the history, and even with Age of Mythology, then learning about mythology, there's a nice side product to the whole thing.
Yeah, I think we've gotten letters over the years about people who said, my son was an indifferent student, then he started playing Age of Empires. Now he's in the library and he's reading about the different races, the cultures, the civilizations, and we can't believe a piece of software has done this. And another friend of mine told me about how his daughter got into playing Age, and she's very young, 6 years old, and she says she learned how to use the computer playing your game, and now she's teaching me how to use a computer. So all that kind of input, that Microsoft, and we loved hearing that. I mean, this is Microsoft wants to make software, an empowerment, and our game is doing that. It's exactly what they were looking for in software.
Yeah. So with Age of Empires 1, when you wrapped it up, how did you feel about it overall? Do you feel like it competed or surpassed the competition, or what was the consensus upon release from you guys?
I think we were very pleased with it. We thought we had done something really great. Now the desperation was, when we started, from where I came from, we had to sell 100,000 copies, I thought, to be successful. By the time we finished, I think we had to sell over 400,000 copies because we'd spent enough money building it and it took so much time. So it was just, we were worried. And then, of course, we sold that number quickly. And we actually, I could be wrong about this, but I think Microsoft ran out of stock before the Christmas season was over. And they had to rush to make more and get them out there. So it was a hit right away. And we were really ecstatic. I remember a journalist in Great Britain told me when I was over there later, he says, I saw the screenshot of that game and knew it'd be a success. So that was great, but we had to deliver on that promise of that screenshot. I think we did.
What is the screenshot? What do you think? What did he see in that potential with just the basic idea of, I don't know, here's a hut in the sand?
Well, what he saw was a digital world that looked inviting. There's a comment that I made years ago that I stick with. It's the sun always is shining in Age of Empires. It was inviting. It was a world you wanted to explore. There was creatures running around, animals, deer running around. There was tigers, and you had to play in this real world. And it was in. I think the word I keep using is inviting. You wanted to know more about the world this was. It wasn't a stark, dystopian world of the future, and it was looked like a real place. And the characters you saw, the guys with a bow, a guy on a horse, a guy with an axe. Okay, I understand. I get that. That I know what those people are going to do. You see a man in a full metal uniform deep in space. You're not quite sure what his capabilities are, but an archer, you got a good idea.
Yeah, was that on your big whiteboard in the beginning as a differentiator? Is we want it to be friendly?
I don't think so. I think Tony brought that up. Tony was our de facto art director early on, and he really went for this realistic look. And we had the idea of the ambient life. You could hunt the deer, and if you weren't careful, the tigers would eat your deer. You want to get the tiger. I think we got rid of tigers because people hated to lose their deer. But elephants running around, you wanted to kill an elephant. It was a huge food source.
Yeah.
I think the whole idea of the look, and that was from I think Tony was. I don't remember it on our chalkboard. I could have been. I don't remember it.
Maybe it's just I wasn't as competitive in multiplayer as I should have been with Ensembles games. But looking back at your entire run there, I just think there's kind of a softness to the competition that I absolutely love. And maybe it's also just the rise of streaming and people being a little more analytical when it comes to competition with RTSs. But it just feels soft and friendly, and that it's not just numbers. And I love, Blizzard's game. I love StarCraft. But every time I play StarCraft, I feel like there's a ticking clock. I need to do this, then this, then this, then this. And if I miss that window, it's all gone. Do you feel that? Was that part of the expression of the design within Ensemble, is to make everything softer, looser, more organic, and less about a analytical beat by beat by beat competition basis?
I don't remember setting out to do that. I think what we did, I think, was provide both that type of experience and many different experiences. So you could play it as a soft game. You could play the map. I hear from people who played the scenarios over and over again. They found them entertaining. They could play solitaire against a computer and set the difficulty level to something that was manageable for them.
Yeah.
They could build their own map and build their own maps and build their own scenarios. And if you wanted to, you could play an intense multiplayer game where you had to be on beat every second. So I think we gave people lots of different experience. I used to say I wanted the smartest 15-year-old kid in junior high to love our game at an intense multiplayer level and tell all its friends, this is the best game I'm playing. Now, most of those kids could not compete with this really whiz kid, but they could buy that game and find a way to really enjoy it themselves. And so I think we made a lot of different experiences inside the box, and that worked for us.
What do you see as the RTS sweet spot, especially when it comes to multiplayer? When you look at Ensemble's work, do you see it as holding up to, do you want people to be measuring APMs and getting down to the millisecond here?
Well, I was never my goal. I mean, I'm a casual player. I mean, I could not compete with the best players in our company by any means. Part of that was because as a designer, one of the designers, you're always trying to break the game and try something, to see if there's something other way to do it. There's other people who are optimizing their play, and then there's people who are trying to do something crazy. I was usually one of the crazy people, and it's like typing 100 words a minute and typing 20 words a minute. I was a 20 or 30 word typer. The best players were typing 100 words a minute and never missed anything. And we eventually hired those people to work on H2 to make it a better game for those reasons. We had some great test team for H2, and half those guys have gone on to the game industry, at least. I think they were all guys at the time.
Yeah.
So
that's wild. I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how you can design a game that can be so friendly, but then also, do you feel like it holds up to those levels and maybe H2 specifically for the most intense possible competition?
I believe so, because we had a great test team that helped us build that type of game. And we had the other kinds. We had already knew how to make a more casual game with the soft maps. Like we had to make maps that were, even though they were sort of randomly generated, but they had to be equally balanced.
Yeah.
Because we had to have the resources in the same distance and the same kind of things. Because people would say, "Hey, that elephant was too far away." I lost as soon as I saw it. I quit. I saw it was too far away. I had to quit. Like I had a friend at Blizzard who told me he got a letter from a fellow who told him if he would move this object 1 pixel to the south, he would never lose. But because of where it was, he occasionally lost. So I wasn't really too enthusiastic about making a game that had that situation in it. But our testers, our balance testers, made sure that we had a game that was could be intensely competitive at a certain level. But we also had these other experiences which were friendly to a larger audience, and that's why I think our game did well all across the world. I mean, some games do well in Asia, some do well in Europe, some do well in America. But our games did well everywhere, in every country, in every style of play.
Did you have much communication with Blizzard or Westwood back in the day? Did you guys talk to each other upon the game's release?
No, I don't remember that. I mean, it turns out over the years, people go to work for different companies. We hired people from Blizzard, they hired people from us, and we got some insight in how it was done. And then you go in conferences, you run into people from other companies, and you talk to them about their product. I mean, I went to work for Zynga for a while, and I was working with a team in Los Angeles as a consultant, and they had all been on Command and Conquer. And one of their guys had, "I got to talk to you. Let's sit down for a while." And we sat down in a room, and he wanted to assemble how we had made our games, and he says, "Because you guys were the competition, we were always looking at what you were doing." And how did you do it? He wanted to know about our processes and stuff like that. So this happened years afterwards. But we were always aware of what the other companies were doing. We tried to look at their screenshots and play their games for sure.
Well, speaking of screenshots, when you mentioned Age of Empires 2, I just had this flashback. It must have been included in Rise of Rome, Age of Empires expansion, but you had screenshots of Age of Empires 2 included in that. And I remember upon Age of Empires 2's release, it just looked nothing like those original screenshots. Do you remember that? Do you remember where those came from?
No, I don't. That's a good question. I don't remember that at all. But I know we went through a lot of iteration. I mean, H2 was supposed to be a fast, follow-up maybe within a year, and we got into making it, and we just got so excited about the possibilities that we came to Microsoft and we proposed, let's take another year to work on H2, and in the interim we can build an expansion pack for H1, which was the genesis for the Rise of Rome.
Yeah.
Sandy Peterson was in charge of that from the design, and we got that out in a year, and it turned out to be a really smart decision because Rise of Rome sold really well, and it kept Age 1 alive for another whole year, and the extra year we spent on Age 2, I think, was worth the investment because that turned out to be like the perfect storm of a game for everybody.
Do you feel like it's Ensemble's best game?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, people argue about it, but I know there's a lot of people who feel Age of Mythology was their favorite. There's something about that game that really triggered a lot of interest.
Yeah.
I like the period of Age 3 better than any period, I think, personally, but they all have their strengths and weaknesses of it. But I think Age 2 is the best game we ever built.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's important for the Age of Empires series? Was it ever discussed, or was it just a coincidence that you're always advancing through the eras? Do you feel like that's a core staple of the series? Do you constantly want it to move forward like that?
Well, you left it opposite. We left it open as an option because the original idea for Age 1 might have been all of civilization, but then we said this is crazy. Let's just do ancient times, and if we do it, we can manage. It's manageable, and if it succeeds, then we can go forward in time. And Age 2 made that really an obvious success. And then we struggled over what Age 3 would be because you're starting to get into ranged weapons. You could fire at something not on the screen or something like that.
Yeah.
So we weren't sure what to do with that one. We struggled with that. And then we talked about a possibility of an Age 4. What would that be? But no work was ever done on it.
And what were those discussions like? What were you guys thinking?
How would we manage, modern warfare? How would we manage modern warfare in a scale?
So it would have been World War II?
I'm not sure. It could have been like the Civil War, American Civil War era, or World War I or something. I don't know. We hadn't really done any work. Usually when we started thinking about stuff like that, we were up to our eyeballs in the work we had to get done for the game in hand. We tried to do many other projects, and we always chewed them up just to get the people back on the Age game. That was the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild that you guys didn't get around to Age of Empires 4. It seems like that was the main game series you guys had at that point. Why do you think you kind of left it alone after Age 3?
Well, Microsoft let us all go.
Right.
That was part of it. I mean, there was management change at Microsoft, and some new people came in. People we didn't have any relationship with, had not been through the hard times, had not. There were years when I think our games funded the whole Microsoft game group. They were so successful, and people came in who didn't have that history, and they were looking to the future, not the past. And I think the future for them was Xbox, and they saw us as a PC game developer. They thought that PC games were not the future. So we did build an Xbox game for them. We built Halo Wars,
yeah.
And we had started on an MMOR. We're going to build a Halo Wars role-playing game.
That's right.
Massive multiplayer game, like to compete with Blizzard. And we worked on that, and the management at the time liked it, and we were going ahead with that. And Age 4 was there, but we thought we'd take a break from it. The idea, let's get these underway and see how they do, and then we can go back to Age 4 if it's still viable. But there was a management change, and the new manager decided we weren't the future, and we were too expensive to operate, and he just closed us up and let us all go.
God, how far did you guys get with that Halo MMO?
It was playable. We were playing it for sure, and it was like recognizable. You'd know what you were looking at for sure. You could get it, and it was a big work. It was a lot of work to be done yet, but we had gone through several milestones with it, and then it was canceled.
Was that a heartbreaker?
It was for the team, I'm pretty sure, because they had invested a lot in it, and they were really excited about it. I mean, the whole thing was a heartbreaker to have the whole company go away. We built a great group. I mean, I have a photograph from around 1996 or 97 where there's like 16 people, which is Ensemble Studios in that time, and that's taken in 1996 or 97. Now in 2009, they let us all go, and I think 12 or 13 of those original 16 people are still with the company. We had a real group that stayed together, and we'd done some wonderful things, and we had a great atmosphere at the company, and we thought we'd be working for Microsoft for the rest of our lives.
I mean, what was it like to have like those early days of Halo Wars, I guess, where Microsoft had a big hit with the original Xbox? Was there a certain amount of like PC pride amongst Ensemble of like, we don't want to work with this console license Halo, like don't make us do this, Microsoft?
Well, I mean, it was an interesting challenge. How do you take RTS and take it to the Xbox?
Yeah.
So, from a challenge, intellectual challenge, that was cool to a lot of people. I know one of our programmers, Tim Dean, he went through and reprogrammed. I think Star Wars, or no, it's one of the games out there, maybe Age of Mythology, and program it to use an Xbox controller. So you could he fixed it so you could play the. We had to prove that we could do it. So he went through and figured out how to make everything work in Age of Mythology using the Xbox controller. So we felt, okay, let's see if we can make a game. Can strategy transmit over to the Xbox? So it was an intellectual challenge, and I don't think we had a problem working with the Halo franchise, as I recall.
Was it always Halo?
Well, Microsoft wanted that. I mean,
Yeah.
and actually they decided to close us down way before we were finished that project, but it gave us a big incentive to stay and finish it.
Wait a minute. So how does that work? So when were you working on the MMO then?
We were working on the MMO in like 2008, 2009.
So like the same era as Halo Wars?
Yeah. So at the
Okay.
same time, they said, we want you to finish Halo Wars. We're going to stop working on the MMO. And we're going to incent you to finish Halo Wars for us. And so basically, the people working on Halo Wars the MMO moved over to work on Halo Wars. We put the whole team on it. Everybody who wanted to stay. I mean, some people left and went off and started their own companies, and the rest of us stayed and finished Halo Wars, and then we went on to something new.
Man, do you remember the setting for the MMO? Do you remember any details about how that game worked, where it fit in Halo lore?
I don't.
Okay.
I wasn't really on the project, and I wasn't really on any of the projects by then. I was more like a manager or a consultant or a PR person.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in the design of any of those games.
Sure. What was the strangest project that never came to be within Ensemble? Were there some oddball ideas that were spitballed around at some point there?
Well, I don't think any of them were crazy. I think actually when we started the company, actually there was a tank game we had just built as a test, and all it was the programming team had built the ability to drive tanks around on a screen and shoot at each other, and that would never really did anything more than just a concept of how to move things on a screen. And then we built I don't remember. I remember there were several games. I just don't remember offhand. I still have documents for some of them. There's a magic game, spell casting, magic stuff going on.
Not like a licensed Magic game, but just a sorcery game.
It was our
Okay.
own product. I don't even remember the name of it. There was an underwater game we built.
What?
It was going on. It was like it was a strategy game set underwater. Like explore the oceans and stuff.
An RTS strategy game?
Yeah,
Or sorry, an RTS underwater game?
something like that. Yeah.
Huh, but it wasn't connected.
I have a screenshot of a guy looking out, like the captain looking out of the Nautilus, kind of like at this big round window looking out into the ocean.
That'd be awesome. Was it connected to Age at all? Would you ever plan any other Age
And it wasn't
spin-offs?
part of Age at all. It was something completely different.
Okay. Awesome.
So it was like we're gamers. We have ideas, and you work on a project for a couple of years. We felt we needed to let people have some freedom to putz around. So we would occasionally say, okay, go build something for a couple of months and see if we can turn it into something great. And none of those things ever got past significant milestone. Either Microsoft didn't want to publish it, or we didn't get past our management team. But
Yeah. Well, what advice would you have for Relic and the guys over there making Age of Empires 4? Is that exciting for you to see? Does it feel like someone else dating your old lady?
I'm excited. I think that it's cool that the Age of Empires is going to continue to live. I mean, I've worked on a couple games that seem to be evergreen, and I'm happy that Age will be continuing on. I'm behind. I mean, I'm past Age of Empires. I mean, it was a wonderful experience. I moved on. I hope they do something clever and fun with it, and they have a great time making it. I'd be interested to see what they do with it. I hope that they make it their own game and have as much fun building something as we did. I mean, I think there's some core ideas about what makes an Age game. I'll let them figure it out. We'll let them figure out if they can understand it, what they think is an Age game. I think there's a strong community of players out there who have a lot of ideas about what an Age game should be. I'm sure they're very vocal on their fan sites and stuff like that. So I'm excited that somebody's going to do it. I'm happy that it's not me. I've moved on to something else.
I'm sure.
I'm pretty close to being retired, actually. I don't even play games much anymore.
What?
If it's not something I work on, I don't play much. It seems like as you get older, playing a game for hours seems like a time. There's something I'd rather be doing while my time seems shorter.
Bruce, you can't turn your back on games now, man.
Well, I haven't. I play a lot of games, let me tell you, but it's usually stuff I'm working on or something that's comparable to what we're working on. We're looking for ideas or, it's a competitive analysis. What are the competitors doing? So what can we borrow from them, or how do we beat them, or what do we do?
Always a businessman. Thinking about like Relic, I mean, it's their first Age of Empires game, I'm guessing they are going to want to be as conservative as possible, and that would lead them to go like, well, let's go back to Age of Empires 1, Age of Empires 2 time frame. Would you feel like that's a mistake for them to go backwards in time? Do you want them to keep going forward in time?
Well, my thought is that they built their reputation building World War II games.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see what they do with the World War II. I mean, I've read a lot of World War II history. I like military history as a young person. And I've been to Europe and visited battlefields. I mean, I'd love to see them do something really cool with it. That would be cool for me. I think it'd be a mistake to go back and do Age 1. I mean, that's been done. I would think that they'd be better off doing something completely fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what are you looking forward to in your development history? You're doing a lot of research amongst competitors, but Hero Academy 2 is coming soon, right?
Hero Academy should be a worldwide launch in a couple of months, and it's been a lot of fun to work on that. And then the next game, like I said, is going to be a departure from anything we've done before, and I think it's going to be really widely well received. I'm really anxious to see what people think of that. And we've got another prototype we're building. It's just a speculative thing.
Yeah.
My little studio. I mean, I'm only a part-timer, more of a consultant. It's started by 3 guys who worked at Ensemble. I volunteered to work with them for free, and they wouldn't let me do that. They insisted on paying me something, and so our little studio has gone from 15 people to up to 30 now, and I don't think we want to get much bigger, but we keep getting these interesting projects. So I'm happy to be engaged and still making games.
It's interesting. You talk about a tight-knit family within Ensemble, and even after Ensemble crumbled, everybody still seems connected. I mean, Robot has a lot of former Ensemble dev talent. They made Hero Academy 1, and then they hand the sequel to you guys, which is like the cousin studio, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're all, two of the founders of Bonus XP worked at Robot, and one of them worked on Hero Academy 1.
Oh, okay.
So we're friends. I mean, we're absolutely friends. I mean, it's good to go over there and visit. There's still a core of people over there that we all work together, and there's at least several. There's 2 or 3 other studios in the Dallas area that are Ensemble guys, or people. So it's one of these seed companies. I mean, Dallas was already a seed area, but there's a lot of game development in Dallas. It's probably the 3rd or 4th biggest game development city in North America.
Yeah.
City.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you talk about the secret project. What games are you playing in the competition area to help inform that secret project? Color the area outside the lines for us, please.
Yeah. Legend of Zelda.
Interesting. Breath of the Wild specifically?
I won't say any more than that, but if you could, it's like an 80s game.
Okay. Huh. That's got to be exciting for you. Awesome. Well, hey, anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to get off your chest reflecting on your entire career, sir?
No, I'd say I've been lucky. I was a game player who decided to try to make games before he found a real job, and almost 40 years have gone by and I never found that real job. I mean, but I have worked for like 10 or 15 different companies. It's not for the faint-hearted. Companies come and go and things blow up, and even when you're successful, there's no guarantees. But there's a story about if you enjoy what you do for a living, you never work a day in your life, and that's been generally true for me. I mean, there's been days when we had to work for sure, but I've been very lucky with the opportunities that came my way.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all of your hard work throughout the years. I really, really loved your work in Ensemble, and I'm really looking forward to Hero Academy 2.
Okay, thanks for the call.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune in next Thursday, and we'll have a new episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody.